Let's go. Okay, whatever. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday show after dark. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joined this week, Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels. How are you, sir? You doing all right?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing pretty good. Yeah. How about you?
I'm okay. It's been, as I mentioned a couple times, I'm getting ready to head out to have some oral surgery done. Been waiting years to actually finally get rid of the pain and fix some other stuff that's broken. But in case anybody hasn't seen the news, it's not particularly relevant to the Sunday show or the Sunday show after dark, but I figure it's going to be a topic of conversation. I know Jimmy went live a little early because of it. President Biden has announced that he is no longer seeking re-election. He has also endorsed Kamala Harris. And that does not mean that Kamala Harris is the next Democratic nominee, although she may be, and almost certainly is. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the upcoming Democratic National Convention, because Kamala Harris already has the endorsement of the Clintons, the Black Congressional Caucus, and a number of others. People are coming out there already putting stuff up. And as the current vice president and everything else with Biden's endorsement, she's basically got access to the $100 million war chest that is there. But personally, obviously, if she ends up being the nominee, she'll get my vote. I don't know who is likely to be her running mate. As much as I like people like Pete Buttigieg, I don't know that that's necessarily the best for the ticket there. What I predicted this, by the way. Arden and I were out, and I was like, what Joe needs to do is go to church Sunday morning, except he can't because he's got COVID. But after church is over, announce that after much prayer and consideration, he's decided that he's going to step out of the race. And while he didn't do it exactly that way, it was definitely Sunday right after church that he made the announcement, or right after everybody else was done with church. So I at least predicted that. The thing is, moving forward, what I'd love to see, the message that I wanted to see from him was, I'm going to release my delegates. I am in support of Kamala Harris. I want there to be at the Democratic National Convention an open convention where we actually work together in proper unity to pick the next leader of the Democratic Party and stand beside them. I will continue my job as president, preparing for when they take over after they soundly defeat, not debate, Donald Trump and the Republicans in November. However, there's a lot to do, a lot we don't know. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Kamala Harris as the nominee, but we won't know until the convention. And actually, Biden's just made that a little announcement. He has also said that he is going to address the American people sometime this week. So there will be a slightly bigger announcement. And I really hope it doesn't get tarnished, because I retweeted his announcement and said, thank you for your service, Mr. President. And of course, some buffoon, godless, heathen, libertarian dude was like, what service? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. He was a senator for years. He was the president, the commander in chief. I really just wanted to ask the dude, what service have you done? Because, while I've never served in public office, I did do 8.5 years in the military. So let's compare records as to, which one of us has actually served there. Captain anti-woke atheist. Really annoying. Anyway, this is a call-in show, and we are already loaded down with calls. Typical thing is theists are going to take priority, but I want to make some kind of hints, tips, and tricks for the theists who may be thinking about calling in. First of all, if you're a theist and you're thinking about calling in, thank you. Second of all, make sure if you are confused you're not used to defending your faith and you don't know, and maybe you don't necessarily have the best, just go ahead. Eric and I are going to appreciate an I don't know answer from you on questions, because at least it gives us something honest to work with. It's much better to acknowledge that you don't know than to pretend you do and wind up looking really foolish. The other thing is there's going to be a delay. We're going to try to mute or whatever we need to do to make sure we're not all talking over each other. There is, in fact, even a delay between Eric and myself. I don't know if everybody realizes that there's a delay between the callers. But when you see hosts kind of butting heads over timing, it's because there's a little bit of a delay there as well. I'm open to pretty much anything today as far as calls. There are a couple things that I'm not going to address right away, as I'm knocking out some videos when I get back from oral surgery, assuming I'm able to talk at all. But if you're going to call in, if you have a sort of esoteric God belief, something that's just you, like you're not part of any organized religion and you're not part of any normative view on religion, so you just have, I believe in a God. If you don't have a defense of it other than I just think this is the case, probably best not to call. Because if all you can do is call in and just say, hey, I believe in a God, but I can't demonstrate it to anybody. I don't know that I have any evidence-based reason for this. I'm not even sure what arguments there are. I'd still be happy to talk to you and finding out how and why you can actively believe a proposition that you can't describe, can't defend, et cetera. Those things are interesting. If you're calling in to present one of the classical arguments for the existence of God, I mean, we've addressed them many times over the last couple of decades. And so it's pretty straightforward as to what questions we're likely to ask. So if we interrupt, we're trying to steer a conversation in a way that's productive. And you are talking to at least one person who's been doing this for 2 decades and somebody else who's been doing it for a while as well. That's the part that's potentially not fair. As the two of us have engaged with trained apologists on numerous occasions, if you're just, listen to the puppies. If you're just the average believer out there and you just finished church and you decided to skip Sunday evening service, and then you got directed here and you're like, hang on, here's a couple of atheists. Yeah, you can call in and kind of ask us questions as well, but we're mostly interested in people who are willing and eager to defend their religious beliefs. On that note, we currently don't have theistic callers, so all the first callers that are queued up are all atheists right now, and I'm ready if you're ready.
Let's go for it. Let's do it.
Cool. So Zam is calling from California, prone to him about evaluating the truth about incels and black pill ideology. Zam, are you the guy I banned from my Twitch chat the other day?
Yes, that's me.
Cool. What's incel stand for?
Would you like to? Okay, first of all, I would like to say a few things.
What's incel stand for?
I do not support involuntarily celibate.
Okay, continue.
Can I say a few things?
That's what I literally just said. Continue.
All right. I do not support violence. I do not support misogyny, and I don't identify nor I'm an incel. But however, I care about the truth. And there are certain truths seems like many people don't agree with or they don't want to agree with. So that's why I want to debate this so we can
before you
something
said,
that's more
before
realistic.
You said you didn't support, before you said you didn't support misogyny, you said you didn't support something else, but I couldn't hear what it was.
Violence. Because I know many people associate incels with violence.
I don't necessarily associate incels with, so are you saying you're not an incel?
No, I'm not an incel. However, I care about the truth and the claims what incels.
I care about the truth too. Is anybody owed sex?
Awesome.
Is anybody owed?
We can
sex?
go over the definition of an incel.
Is anybody owed sex? Why are you already? This is you already got banned from my Twitch for doing this dishonestly. So when I ask questions, it would really benefit you to answer them.
Okay, you can go ahead with the questions. I thought I was going to mention something before the questions. No, the answer is no.
Okay. Continue with your case So you're not an incel, but you're supportive of the truth about incels. What is a truth that we need to know that is relevant to the whiny little bitches who think people owe them sex?
I would like to evaluate. Should I answer your question or mention my things first and then we go back and forth?
Go ahead.
Because...
Mention your things first.
Okay. I would like to evaluate the definition of incel, and then second, black pill. We can go over the definition of incel, which stands for involuntarily celibate. Does this definition include violence or misogyny in it? It's a yes or no question.
Not just the label, no.
Okay, awesome. And incels, who are people that they mentioned that they are not getting sex and it's not in their control. Do you have a problem with this? Is this possible for someone who wants to have sex but he's not able to get sex? Is that a possibility for somebody? Yes or no?
Is the question, is it possible for someone to want to have sex and not find someone to have sex with? Of course that's possible.
Yes. Awesome. Okay, so this is the definition of an incel. So it seems like we settled on this. I don't see any misogyny. I don't see any violence. I don't see anything else.
No.
This is just a definition.
No. If you're not going to argue honestly, this is going to go really fucking poorly for you. You asked if the fact that... Keep interrupting me. See how fucking long you go without getting banned here. You ready?
Yes. Sorry, there is a lag.
Is it possible for someone to be involuntarily celibate and not be a knowing, identifying, labeling incel?
Yes, it's possible.
Cool. So you don't just get to point to people who would like to have sex and can't and say that they are incels if they don't identify with that label. The incel ideology includes notions about attractiveness and about who is in charge of sex.
I do not agree with that.
Okay. So what's black pill ideology?
Incels believe in the black pill ideology. However, we went over the definition of incel, involuntarily celibate. There's nothing else about that. That's all it is. Now we are going back to the black pill. Black pill ideology supports. It talks about a few topics. One of them is one of the biggest factors in order for you to attract a sexual partner is outside of your control, and that is your physical attractiveness, which is determined by your genetics. That's one of the topics within
No,
the
it's not determined.
No,
it's not. No, it's not determined by your genetics. And also, see, attractiveness is subjective. And while there are normative standards and genetics plays a factor in it, you don't get to dumb this down to, oh, you would like to have sex, but you're not attractive, and that's genetics. But let's assume just for a second that there's someone out there who is normatively unattractive, just kind of across the board. Generally, you're unattractive. So what? Why does there need to be a black pill ideology? Why isn't it just the fact that this person is not as attractive as another person to the people they wish they were attractive to?
So this is a fact, and many people do not see this. However, black pill clarifies this fact and goes into the detail why you are not objectively more attractive. You said looks are subjective. I'm going to disagree with that. Looks are mostly objective, proven by I have my research.
Stop. When I say no, stop fucking talking right then, okay?
Okay.
Cool. That makes it a lot easier. I didn't say, or if I did say, let me clarify this. Attractiveness is subjective. How you look, the actual phenotype, is a presentation of your genes. But how other people assess your phenotype is not merely a product of your genes.
Okay. I have a question.
Okay.
So if majority of women prefer taller guys, would this be objective stance or would this be subjective? We can clarify this then. I believe this would be objective. If most women prefer a man that is taller than them. Wouldn't that be objective?
Okay. I don't understand why you're asking this question, but I'm going to address this. If it is a fact
Sure.
that the majority, stop. If it is a fact that the majority of women prefer something, then that is an objective fact, but their preference is subjective. What they prefer is subjective. The fact that they prefer it is objective. What difference does it make?
Because I would like to talk about looks, how it is objective with the example of the height.
Why does then why did you bring up, why did you specifically bring up what women prefer?
Because I would like to evaluate your definition of objective versus subjective, and this was one of the examples that came to my mind.
No. Why did you bring up women? Is it not possible that somebody could be attractive to men or to non-binary people?
Sure, it was just an example.
No, it wasn't just an example. It is emblematic. It wasn't just an example. You, like the black pill people, are viewing at heteronormative views and generalizations and then trying to extrapolate something out of it. Here, let's make it easy. If you're a man and you are attracted to women, you would prefer that women were attracted to you generally, yes?
Yes.
If you are normatively unattractive, so that fewer women are likely to find you attractive, does that mean that there aren't women who would find you attractive?
There would be women that would find you attractive, yes, even though you're normatively. I would like to know the definition of normatively, but let's go with that.
There is no definition. Normatively means the stereotypical norm, the median average. The average person would look at them and say, yes, they're attractive, or no, they're not. That's the normative thing. But let's say okay. Let's say you are the least attractive person physically. You're the least physically attractive person on the planet. What percentage of women might still find you attractive for other reasons, or even for your physical appearance?
I do not have a percentage, but it would be significantly lower.
I agree.
It's not about 0 or 1.
I agree. I agree. It would be significantly lower. So unattractive people are going to attract fewer people. So what? What is the black pill ideology? What is so important that a bunch of dudes decided to create black pill ideology?
I would say it's really important because it's about the truth.
No.
And black pill, for example, people think
I'm so tired of you just saying it's about the truth. It's about the truth. It's about the truth. I asked what was so. We already agree that people have varying degrees or varying levels of attractiveness, and that there are certain people who are going to be more attractive to others, and there are certain people who are going to be less attractive to others. So what? What is it that the black pill ideology does that in any way goes beyond, hey, some people are going to be more attractive than others?
Many people don't know this. That's the problem. And black pill includes this in its theory and explains it even more with detail.
Zam, that's not the question I asked. Why on earth would you talk about many? Do you think that there are genuinely people out there who don't know that some people are generally more attractive than others? That's the stupidest thing I've heard all day.
Yes, many people think it's personality or confidence or any other bullshit. Many people don't consider looks as an important factor.
It's like you don't even fucking understand the words that I'm asking and that I'm stringing together a question. Okay. Everyone on the planet has access to the understanding that they're not attractive to everyone and that everyone isn't attractive to them, correct?
Many people, I don't know. Yes.
Name
some. I cannot
name
say
show me any significant portion of the population that does not understand different people are more and less physically attractive in general. I don't know how you can even fucking argue that there are people who don't grasp this.
Yes.
Literally everybody focuses on their appearance from time to time, lives in a world where other people focus on their appearance, interact with people, and every single person can go, I'm attracted to that person, but not that one, and not that one, and that one, and that one. So given that that is the norm, how can you sit here and realistically suggest that there is any significant portion of the population that does not understand different people have different attractiveness factors?
I agree with that. Significant portion. Yes.
And
I
why
thought
did
you
you?
said everybody.
No,
Sorry.
no. This is okay. So now
Sorry.
your point is
Go ahead.
moot. What's the point of black pill ideology? Because when I asked you what the point was, you said it was because some people didn't understand that different people are differently have different levels of attraction. So now that you've acknowledged that that reason was bullshit, what is the value or point of black pill ideology?
So black pill includes different topics within the theory. And when somebody wants to understand certain things, they can look into black pill and understand certain things. I think that's the point. That's the value in it. However, I disagree with certain things, such as you said, it's subjective. It is objective, backed by research, experiments.
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's fucking not. You've already acknowledged this. Please stop going back to it. Different people are attracted to other people for different reasons and to different degrees. The one person who George Clooney was voted sexiest man alive one year, and my ex-wife says he's uglier than homemade sin. It is absolutely subjective. There are some people who are going to be attractive, and there are some people who aren't, and they're going to be attractive and unattractive to different people. That's the very definition of subjective. There are norms, and it may be pretty easy to generally look at some people and say these people are generally more attractive than others, but that doesn't tell you how attractive any individual is to any other individual. It is a fallacy for you to argue from the general to the specific. That is fallacious. So what is it that black pill ideology, what truth does black pill ideology have that is valuable?
One of them could be one of the major factors for attracting somebody else would be your genetics. That's one of the things. There are many other things
that is an absolutely acknowledged, true, and completely pedestrian and irrelevant thing that is not. You don't require any black pill ideology or any incel ideology to acknowledge that genetics impacts your physical appearance, which can be assessed positively or negatively by other people. What else you got? Because you're boring me to tears and wasting my time because I don't see any value in defending black pill ideology or suggesting that it's not misogynistic when I've been to the forums and the fuckers that are there are some of the most misogynistic people everywhere. And you're coming in saying, yes, but there's a genetic component to appearance. Yes, we know there's a genetic component to appearance. I breed reptiles. I engage in Mendelian genetics on a regular basis. I understand how different genotypes impact different phenotypes. And I also understand, because I'm selling those, that some of them are more physically attractive to different people in different groups, and some people can't tell the difference between them at all. And similarly, as a human being who's been here for 55 years, I have seen thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. And a good chunk of those I've gone, ooh, I'm attracted to that person. And oh, I'm absolutely not attracted to that person, as has everyone else on the fucking planet. So what do I get out of black pill ideology?
You don't, because your values, your what you know, what you understand is more similar to black pill, but many people don't, and they disagree with black pill.
No, Zam.
You're not like that. You have a good understanding.
No, Zam. No, you're not going to set up my view as similar to black pill, which by the Southern Poverty Law Center has been deemed an online male supremacist ecosystem. The mere fact that I'm acknowledging genetics and phenotype does not mean that I am in any way even in the fucking ballpark of black pill. Say it again and I'll hang up on you. What value is there in black pill ideology? Last chance. What value, what truth comes from black pill ideology that isn't just recognized as a truth outside of it? What? Last chance.
Again, many people do not understand these concepts, and Black
Go
Pill gives
away.
them a chance to understand how
Go
your physical
away.
attraction
Go the
works.
fuck
That's all.
away. Go the fuck away.
You
You
agree
don't just
that
get to. No, I'm going to hang
prefer
up on
taller
you.
people,
And
right?
matter of fact,
You
I'm
agree with
hanging
that.
up on you right fucking now. You do not get to say the value is that not everybody knows this, so we're going to push black pill ideology. No, you can teach them genetics and you can teach them the basics of science, but you don't have to teach them the poisonous, misogynistic black pill garbage that the Southern Poverty Law Center has already labeled as such and includes in their list of hate groups. This is why you got banned from my Twitter or my Twitch, because you are absolutely so desperate to tell everybody that you're not an incel, but you're supportive of black pill stuff, because it's really important for people to understand that attractiveness is objectively defined by your genetics. You are wrong. Your physical appearance is in many ways controlled and dictated by your genetics, but attractiveness is a subjective assessment. I have seen some amazing pairings where I'm not attracted to either of the individuals in the group, or one of the people that you find really attractive and one of them you don't. But at the end of the day, the existence of incel ideology and black pill ideology is a misogynistic view by lonely dudes who are pissed that the people that they want to have sex with don't want to have sex with them. And so they lie to themselves and say that because the people they want to have sex with don't want to have sex with them, that means the universe has been unfairly, objectively poisonous in their attractiveness. No, there are plenty of people that I'd like to have sex with that are never going to have sex with me. You know what? You know what's really cool? What's really cool is when you get that fucking chip off your shoulder and stop talking about how important black pill is, and you just run around trying to figure out who is actually attracted to you, so that you can find out, ooh, I'm attracted to that person and they're attracted to me. We can work with this. And it also helps if you stop looking at sex as if it's an act that you are owed, or that you need to engage in, or that it's a conquest, or that it's a prize to be given out, or you pretend that women control it, or anything along those lines. And instead, grow the fuck up and work towards an actual relationship. Sex isn't a reward. It's not a commodity. Your attractiveness is subjectively assessed by other people and can still fit into a norm. Just like we can look at the ratings for certain TV shows to tell how popular they are. And there are certain things where you can evaluate the structure of a joke and the structure of the writing in a program and say, this is well written. And yet it still might not appeal to people. People are going to watch whatever reality show that gets put in front of their face. They're going to watch Bachelor Nation stuff. No matter, maybe they're watching it because those people are awful. Maybe. And so we're looking at their statistics. Anyway, that was way too much time wasted. And my apologies that we had to go down that road. But we've got better stuff here.
Yeah, no worries.
Because we've got Theist
my 2 cents on that. I just want to put my 2 cents in without getting in too deep. But I mean, yeah, attraction between two people. Yeah, genetics plays a part in it. Physical form plays a part in it. Generally, evolutionarily speaking, we tend to be drawn towards people, to others that at a biological base level are project a sense of strong offspring or stability or other factors that tend to promote survival. That's our base instinct. That's kind of our like evolutionary wiring. We live in a much more complicated society these days, and there's other factors now also involved: public perception, ability to make finances and secure living and things like that. And two people can get together and have different factors, different requirements that are not strictly bound to the physical, and find attraction there and make it work out. And this is my anecdote, but take it as you will. I once knew somebody a long time ago. When I first met her, I was not physically attracted towards her. She was a friend. I enjoyed talking to her and hanging out. But as I got to know her better, as I understood who she was, appreciated her humor, her values, her physical attraction and attraction overall increased in my eyes over the months. And I ended up in a relationship with her for a while. So just getting to know her changed my perception, even my perception of her physicality, and turned her into somebody that was attractive, I considered attractive to myself. So did her genetics change? No.
Yeah.
My perception of her changed because I understood her more. And I don't want to sit here and lecture individuals who are having problems finding a mate or finding boyfriends or girlfriends or finding anybody in partners, but they need to understand that stop yourself for a second. Men and women and others, they all have generally different perceptions and desires and outlooks. Don't project yours on the person that you think you're attracted to or the person that you are attracted to. Don't project your values onto that person, because I think that's really what the red pill ideology and the black pill ideology and all this other stuff comes down to. It's insecure people projecting their insecurities onto those other people and saying they think the same that I do. And because on some level, my thinking is so messed up, therefore their thinking is that messed up. Put that aside, work on yourself, work on the factors of yourself that you can work on your appearance, your cleanliness, your kindness, how you interact with others. Improve those things, and you might be surprised at the results.
Yep.
So, yeah, and confidence. Just be confident with people, but confident and kind. That's all you really need in most cases. But anyway.
Mohammed's calling in from Maryland, pronounce he, him. Some transitioning here. Mohammed, have you gone from Islam to Christianity and are on the teetering edge of that? Am I understanding the screener note correctly?
Yes, Matt. I will use and Eric. How are you?
Hello,
doing well, thanks. Hopefully we can help at all. Or
yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I was born Muslim. Well, not born Muslim, but I was born into a Muslim family, and my dad was an Islamic leader at my country. I came from West Africa, Sierra Leone, and so I was born to that family. I went to a Quranic school. I learned the Quran, and I was Muslim all my life. And then I started questioning a whole lot of stuff. I had 21 siblings, and
wow.
I started asking questions, looking at what was going on at the house. We all live in the same house, and so I got this friend when I went to college, and she took me to church once, and everybody embraced me, and they were like, "Oh, what's your name, Mohammed? Mohammed. Why are you in church?" And they knew my dad, so I was trying to sneak around and try not to tell them anything. But then eventually I started going on and on again, and then I started evaluating the treatment I was getting in my Islamic sect and that of my Christian friends that I met already. And so I quietly started sneaking away from them and coming to the Christian side. And because I thought for me, then I was moving away from what I thought was toxic and coming to something that was a little accommodating for me. But yes, over time, it went on. And even as I'm speaking to you right now, my sisters, my brothers don't even know I don't believe anymore. I'm doubting. I don't call myself anything else, but I kept questioning, but I can't tell them anything. My sister visited me like a month ago. She came from New Jersey, and she was asking me about whether I pray, whether I go to the masjid, whether I'm a Muslim. I had to walk out of the house. I couldn't answer to her because I can't lie anymore. Because I haven't prayed for a long time. And I stopped going to church. Because my wife was a Christian. She took me to church and I got baptized. And then I was also, when we separated, I went to a Mormon church. Somebody introduced me to a Mormon church. I went there. I got baptized at a Mormon church too. And I became a Mormon priest. I was ordained as an Aaronic priest at a Mormon church. And I started attending and learning the stuff. And it was crazy experience. I don't understand. So I kept running around in circles, baptized 4 times, and now I am stuck. I've been listening to you guys for like a year now, and I don't know how much I have learned. But the question I have is, I came from this family, and we are like a tight-knit family. We tell ourselves everything. Now I have to sneak around. I go to my sister's house. I stayed in the room. I can't go pray outside with her and her husband. And they kept asking questions, and I have to leave before my timing because I am not comfortable anymore. And she will say, "You have to come. We have to do salah." I don't want to do it. And so I have to leave before time. So now my problem is, how do I tell these people that I don't believe this thing anymore?
Yeah.
I grew up there.
First of all, Mohammed, one thing to think about and kind of keep tossing around in your head. You're now in a position that a lot of former believers are in, where they started off Muslim, Christian, whatever, and they find that they don't believe anymore, and they're surrounded by believers, and they feel, rightly or wrongly, that they need to hide this. If you were in a family full of atheists and you converted to Islam, do you think that you would also feel that you would need to hide that from them?
I might, because based on the fact that I am in a relationship with them and the bond is actually based on our beliefs and that. But I don't know. If I'm in a atheist family, I think they are more like open. They don't care. They will tell you, okay, fine. I don't think I'll be this scared. But because I grew up, like I was raised in that kind of community, I was raised in that kind of relationship with God and stuff. It's hard. It's hard, especially when I see my sister. She comes to my house and she cried and she started telling me about my dad. He's late now, my mom too, and she makes me feel so guilty that I abandoned. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do because they said I should do salah and make dua for them. I said, I don't think this is working. I said, hello?
Yeah, I didn't understand the last thing you said, that they're expecting you to do what?
Yeah, well, in Islam, when your parents are late, they are dead, you are required to make dua for them, which is a prayer.
Yeah.
Yes, like you're asking Allah, it's like an intercessory prayer, like
Yep.
to intercede for them for their mistakes and misdeeds. And she comes to me. I was almost going to tell her she was there with her son, and I couldn't. I couldn't because she was tearing up, and she said she hasn't seen me pray since she came, and that I have the mat, the prayer mat, right at my doorstep that I step on to come into the house. I said, it's not a prayer mat. It's just like a rug for me so that I cannot bring my dirty shoes into my room. And then when she left, she has not been calling me often, but we talk, but she has not been calling me often, and we have not discussed that. So my problem now is my elder brother too. He keeps doing the same thing. He's in Turkey. He keeps calling me and telling me stuff, and they put me on family meetings and forums, and I just don't say anything.
So the first thing that I'll recommend, and we'll see if Eric has other thoughts and advice, definitely reaching out to something like Recovering from Religion and the Secular Therapy Project, because you're in this position right now where you are basically ostracized. Apart from just like returning to Islam, which, let's face it, isn't likely to happen, you're in a position where you are potentially in danger, at risk, or at least at risk of being ostracized from all the people around you, and you're feeling it on a regular basis. And it sounds like they're already aware or curious, because you seem to be getting hounded by your religious relatives more than I would expect from someone who, was normally practicing with them. So the one piece of advice I've got, which could be awful, is I didn't want to live pretending to be someone I wasn't, even around my family members. It became very obvious to me that because I think differently and have different views from a number of people I care about, this was going to cost me friends and family and relationships at some point. And I had to make a decision of, as much as I will miss them, I don't want toxic people in my life. I don't want to be in a constant state of anxiety and stress and wondering when the next religious kind of intervention is going to come. Or I don't want to be misleading people about who I am and what I believe. And so I just made a conscious decision. I'm okay. Well, I was outed, but I was in the process of saying, okay, I'm just going to be out, and whatever relationships it cost me, it cost me. But I can't make that decision for you, and neither can anybody else.
Yeah, you're right. You're very correct. I I listened to your whole other times, and I had your story with your parents and your mom, and how you were able to like settle it with them. And I am getting to that. I spoke with one of my uncles the other day, and he was trying to tell me that I have no right. I have no right to abandon Islam. And I said, Uncle, I have been with you guys all my life. And you knew what I went through in my dad's house. A whole lot of us. My dad had at least 3 wives at any time. He was married like 7 times. He had 7. I knew 6 of my stepmoms. And my mom left when I was like 6 years, 7 years old. I could still remember all of that. I knew what I went through, bullied, beaten, sent to the corner of the house. My mom was not there to take care, and I said, I saw all these, and my sister suffered. My sister that came to my house the other day, and she was here too. And I said, you remember what we went through? I said, did you ever question that Allah was there watching? These people treated us like that when our mom left. We were very young. I have to wash their hair and braid them. I said, did you remember that? I said, did you think a God will let this happen to us? And she was just adamant. And then she is married to some Islamic man that has my name too. His name is Mohammed. And this man is an abusive idiot. Sorry for using that word. And I called him twice, and I told her I'm never going to call him again. Because what he does is he will put his hands on her, and then he call the police, and she won't. She won't, because she just had a baby with him, and she's all bent on these Islamic principles and stuff. I said I had to call a stepdaughter, and the stepdaughter will call the cops to come to the house and do some welfare check, and she will pursue charges. She will not press charges. So it's like the indoctrination is on their side, and it is affecting me because I am thinking about losing a relationship with them, and they kept asking me, are you this, are you that, are you this, are you that? I said, I don't know anymore. And just to share the story, I went to emergency room the other time, and one guy with beers and stuff, I realized he was Muslim, I think, and then he rode me to the radiology department, and then he asked me, Mohammed, are you Muslim? I said, I don't know anymore. And then this guy, his mood changed, and he looked at me, and I realized that I was left there on that wheelchair for a longer time. I wasn't, until a nurse came and said, oh, Mohammed, you should be going upstairs for something else. And then I said, I don't know, the person that brought me is not here. And so I realized he abandoned me because I told him I'm Mohammed, and then I told him I'm not sure about whether I'm Muslim anymore. And just to share my story, please, I don't want to bore you, please.
It's not boring at all, Mohammed. The problem is,
yeah.
Well, go ahead, Eric.
Okay, yeah, Mohammed. I mean, my heart really goes out to you. This is. Yeah. It sounds like you are in very dire straits. And when I hear everything you just said, all I can think of is that Mohammed here sounds like a kind, gentle soul, and he is the victim of religious institution that has been designed to do this to people, designed to remove agency, designed to remove choice, designed to get you stuck so that you can't freely make decisions that will lead you to your fulfillment and your happiness. I mean, just the three examples that I've picked up so far in what you said there, where you feel torn between being true to yourself and preserving ties to your family. You have an uncle who outright tells you that you don't have a right to choose, removing that agency. You have I believe you said it was your sister, who has an abusive husband who refuses to talk to the police and give her side of the story out of fear of the reprisals. You, Mohammed, are a victim. Many of us have been victims, some to less extreme degrees, but you're a victim of an institution that has been grown and molded and designed to do this to people. And it's not fair. It sucks. Like, nobody should have to deal with this. In a proper world, nobody should have to deal with what you're dealing with right now. So absolutely, my heart goes out to you. With that being said, we all find ourselves in unfair situations in life where we have to make choices. We have to evaluate our priorities and our goals. And in many cases, none of us can get everything we want. And what Matt said earlier with the Secular Therapy Project and the Recovering from Religion Foundation, those are excellent resources to reach out and talk to people far more qualified than me or Matt, because we aren't a professional, counselors or diligently trained in handling these things. All we can do is give you our opinions and our ideas about what you should do next. But utilizing those resources can help you center yourself and get grounded. And my advice is to stand back and say, hey, you know what? I understand that life is not fair. I'm in a position that I don't deserve, and I probably have choices ahead of me that I have to evaluate and I have to prioritize, and I have to figure out what exactly it is that I want. And it's all overwhelming. And like I said, we've all been there in some degree or another. But my best advice to you, I think, is follow Matt's advice and go to those resources and check out what they offer. And then once you have a support system that you can rely on, either through a counselor or through representatives there or friends around you, then start picking your priorities and start making choices to work towards those priorities. And understand that you might have to make choices that are hard. You might have to make choices where you have to sacrifice something for something you want more. And unfortunately, life is not fair like that, but we have to contend with life and reality with the way it is. But I think you reaching out to us and talking to us about this and pouring your heart out to us, I think you're on the appropriate steps to figure out how to handle this, how to do this, because you're seeking help from others. And I think that requires a lot of strength and a lot of humility. And I think it's commendable that you're doing that. But like I said, my heart goes out to you. I can't give you a magic recipe for what you need to do to fix everything, because there probably isn't one. But the best thing you can do is continue what you're doing and reach out to people and seek individuals who can perhaps guide you and give you their insights, and perhaps their solutions or what they did for their lives might work for yours, might not. It's up to you to decide how to navigate that course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Erika. I already have my resolve. First things first, I am going to leave a voice message for my uncle and tell him that I'm not a kid anymore, and he cannot tell me what I should do or not, because I'm the one that sent money for him to get. And just not because I sent money for him, but he should know that he wasn't even there when I was bullied at my own father's house. And my sister, I already told her, but she laughs. She don't believe. I said, me, I don't know anymore. Hey, you've been to church, you've been this, and what did you? And she's so happy, she's so lively when I tell her my stories about the Mormon church. And now I went there, but I do not believe. She like, oh, I told you. And when I told her, well, when I was with this, when I got baptized at the Baptist church, I was just trying to experiment and find out. And I said, I told you. But then when it comes to Islam, it's a no-no for her. But my resolve is she'll be the next person I'll call and tell them, look, I value the fact that you, my sister, you knew what we went through in my father's house. You knew how they segregated us. They put us at the corner, the back room of the house, because our mom was no longer there. And the fact that all these people were there, they go to the mosque and they talk about all the stuff and ignoring the fact that we are being abused at the house. I had to braid my sister's hair. I can braid here because I learned that from them looking at their ear, and then it's not done. But all the other kids are done. I have to wear my dad's shoes to school because my dad couldn't buy a new pair for me. My stepmom would rather get his son get in more pairs of shoes. And guess what? That brother
Muhammad,
that I'm talking about. Yeah. So I'm going to.
I
I'm actually.
apologize. We're kind of far afield. We can recommend that you reach out to Recovering from Religion and the Psychotherapy Project, but what you're doing now, um, I I think you need to reach out to the Psychotherapist Project. I think you need someone to talk to because you're going through a whole bunch of things that are interpersonal family stuff that Eric and I just can't help with, apart from recommending that you talk to a therapist. I, I empathize with you. I'm sorry that you go through it, but I don't know that there's anything else we can add to this other than your situation is not good. And you seem to be taking some of the steps that I think are commendable and recommended, and that, you're starting to stand up for yourself. You're going to, send a message to your uncle, hey, I'm a grown up. You don't get to tell me what to do. I don't know that we have. I think you're going to need to reach out to the Psychotherapy Project and possibly Recovering from Religion, but I don't know that there's any other advice or anything else that we can suggest on here other than to go down that path and give it some time.
Okay.
You need people in your area. Like you need a secular community, an oasis, whatever, where there are people there who have potentially been through this that you can go and talk to. That's another option. But I don't know what else we can do here.
Okay, right. Guys, thanks for having me. At least my main objective was to share my story, and maybe there are other people out there that have my same story and they can have the guts to reach out to. Thank you so much, guys. Secular therapists. Yeah. I'm going to be on that right now. Thank you so much, Matt. Eric, thank you guys for what you're doing, man. I appreciate it, man.
When you get any kind of update, if you found what worked best for you that helped, you can call back in, and then that information can be used to potentially help somebody else. So thank you so much, Mohammed, but we're going to move on from here. I wish you all the best.
Yep. All the best, Mohammed.
That's a miserable, tough place to be.
Yeah, that's we like I said, we've all experienced that to some degree or another, but Muhammad's situation sounds fairly extreme. It sounds like his entire family is deeply steeped in Islam and also some in Christianity, and they're very adamant in the way they keep people in there using those types of tactics. So yeah, it's rough. Heart goes out to you, Muhammad. But yeah, seek support, talk to others. It's good thing you did talking to us. Talk to others as you just talked to us, and get more insights, and good luck. Best of luck. And I hope you navigate those waters, because that's not easy.
Yeah. On that note, we got a bunch of theistic callers calling in with some of them looking for some advice in assessing their things, and others evidently willing to demonstrate the existence of God. Max is a theist in Illinois. Pronouns are he, him. Max, it says here that you're saying the existence of God is an axiom. So does that mean that you don't have any sort of evidence-based argument in support of it?
Hello. Yeah, essentially, what I would like to say is that, how, you can't really prove that 1 + 1 is 2.
Actually, no, you can prove that 1 + 1, Max, you can in fact prove that 1 + 1 = 2 for specific definitions of 1 + equals and 2. But
okay, well, let me use an example that fits my argument better in that case.
No, hang on. You need to listen, Max. I asked you, is it the case that you're saying God is an axiom, and that means that you don't have an evidence-based argument for God? And you said yes, correct?
Well, look, you can prove that parallel lines.
Did you say? Why are you being difficult, Max? I'm exercising just a fuck ton of patience and asking you this question over and over again. So here's what's going to happen. Max, I'm going to ask you this question one more time. It's a yes or no question, and that's going to determine whether or not we continue. Are you saying that you do not have an evidence-based argument for the existence of God? Yes or no?
Yes, and I can explain that further.
I don't need you to explain it further. That's the point. If your point is that you believe in a God that you think is an axiom, I don't have any interest in that because it's not an evidence-based argument. It's basically just you saying,
Also, you ask me
I'm
a
just,
question, and then you
would
say
you,
that
would you
I
stop
cannot.
interrupting me? Would you? Okay. Never
No,
mind,
it's important
Max.
that I
I
say
don't
something.
need to hear anything from you. Goodbye. I have no patience left in my bucket for people who are going to interrupt. And as I said before, if you're calling in with some esoteric God thing that you can't demonstrate with an evidence-based argument, I'm not interested. If in that case, Max was calling in to say that God is an axiom. And my response to that is no, it is not a reasonable axiom to accept that in fact there is a God. It is an unnecessary axiom that I don't accept. And so you can't, you can't prove parallel lines never intersect. Yes, you can. By definition in Euclidean geometry, that is the fact. Just like you could prove 1 + 1 = 2. Max doesn't understand the basics of how we demonstrate something. And so he thinks there are axioms like 1 + 1 = 2, which isn't an axiom, and that he can just make God another axiom. Not here, not now. Take it elsewhere.
I would have been curious because I believe he answered yes to the question of, can you formulate an argument that shows a God exists? And I think he said yes. And if that's the case, then why is God an axiom? Because if your God's an axiom and you formulate an argument to prove that God exists, you're in a circular pattern now. We aren't going to accept that. But if you can do it without God being an axiom, then why are you making God an axiom? Like, we don't have to have that in there then, because you can prove it. Or rather, you can show it to be true through an argument.
The question was phrased, are you saying you do not have an evidence-based argument? And he said yes.
Oh, I thought you said you do. Do you? Okay. No. Sorry, I had that completely backwards. Okay.
I was clear. Yeah.
My thing there is, though, like, if God is an axiom, I like axioms that are, at least falsifiable or can at least be shown to be true in one case. I would be interested in how Max would do either of those things with that axiom if you start with that. But anyway, we can move on.
Sure. Vicky in Indiana is a theist, pronouns are she, her. And, Vicky, I'll just let you ask your question and say what's going on, because I'm not completely following based on the assessment here. So welcome, Vicky. You're on with Eric and Matt.
Thank you so much. I told your screener that I am trying to be an atheist. Why? I am a recovering Catholic. And I've heard you talk about the afterlife, or the non-existence of an afterlife. Both of my sons passed away back in the early 2000s. And I know for a fact, in my mind, that they both visited me. So I'm wondering if that hinders my ability to be an atheist, because in every other aspect, with my critical thinking abilities, I do not believe that there is a God.
Well, if you don't believe there's a God, congratulations, you're an atheist.
All right.
And
now, how do I
belief in the afterlife? Belief in the afterlife doesn't necessitate a God either. So you could believe in the afterlife, but also not believe in a God.
That's great. But I just guess I thought maybe that was a problem.
But it doesn't mean that your belief regarding an afterlife is warranted. It's not atheism that's relevant. No. When you said you're trying to become an atheist and the first thing out of my mouth was why, it's because that's not a goal. You don't have any choice. You are either convinced that a God exists, in which case you're a theist, or you are not convinced, in which case you're an atheist. It's not a goal. It's not something to pursue. It's not something you need to try. The second you announce that you're not convinced there's a God, congrats, you're an atheist. Now, there may or may not be an afterlife, and your particular beliefs about an afterlife may or may not be justified. Atheism, in the position of not being convinced that a God exists, doesn't mean that you're a skeptic, doesn't mean that you're a philosophical naturalist. It doesn't mean you anything about an afterlife belief. So you'd have to look at what you believe about an afterlife and what the reasons are to determine whether or not, that those beliefs are warranted or whether they're the result of some bias or flaw in thinking.
Well, I honestly do not believe in heaven. I guess what I believe in, or I feel like I know, is that for a short period of time after someone passes, that they have the ability to come back to you. And then after a while, there's no longer any connection.
What makes you say that, Vicky? Why do you think that shortly after somebody dies, they're able to visit others?
I don't really know that. I just know that they both visited me. That's all I can say.
How do you know that they both visited you versus you think they visited you, but you're wrong?
Well, I felt them with me. I felt their presence. I felt their voices. I heard their voices. And I also felt them touch me.
So I need to ask you this, Vicky, because I don't know. Maybe I'm turning over a new leaf. We could stop right now, and you don't believe there's a God. You're not convinced there's a heaven. You just have some vague notion about afterlife, and we could leave it there. But I can tell you that if we want to keep going on whether or not your belief in an afterlife or interactions with that is in any way reasonable, it could get very rough, especially since we're going to be talking about the unfortunate passing of both of your sons, or two of your sons in any case. And so when you say, oh, I felt their presence, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means to feel someone's presence. And when you say you felt them touch you, I'm still wondering how you discern the difference between someone who's not alive touching you when they are not physical, so a non-physical thing doing something physical. I don't know how you detect or identify that, and how you determine that you're not imagining something or delusional, or that this isn't just, something your brain cooked up. So if you want to keep going, I will, but I've got difficult questions and I'm not trying to upset anybody.
Maybe in other words, Vicky, what Matt is asking is, can you entertain the idea that you might be mistaken about your interpretation of your experience?
Yes, I'm willing to listen.
Okay. That's good.
So when you say that you know they touched you, what is that experience like, and how do you tell the difference between thinking that they touched you and being wrong about it, and them actually touching you? What's the mechanism that tells the difference?
The only thing I can say is I could feel their touch, or it was one of them that touched me. The other one spoke to me in my ear. And it was the things they said that really convinced me that they were there. That's the best way I can put it.
Did you hear this audibly, as if they were physically in the room, or did you feel it?
Yeah.
Did you hear that internally and just describe it as talking to you?
Well, I answered them, so I did hear it audibly, yes.
If somebody else was in the room with you, would they have heard it as well?
I have no idea.
So you're sitting there, and evidently you're convinced one son touched you and another one spoke to you. How do you know that it wasn't the same son doing both?
Because of the way they presented themselves.
Did you see them?
No, I did not.
So how did they present themselves?
Well, my younger son passed first. My younger son was a pistol, to say the least. And both of my sons died from overdoses. The first son that died, the younger one, he stole medicine out of my home, took it to sell it, couldn't sell it, so he snorted it himself, and that's how he passed. And he knew that I was angry with him, or at least I think he knew that. That's why I'm saying he visited me the way he did. But he presented himself as a young, like a toddler. And I don't know why I got that impression, but he did say, "Do you know who this is?" when he supposedly came to me.
I'm having
son,
difficulty following any of this because you're talking about how they present themselves. And so you have a son that died, and you're claiming that he presented himself to you as a toddler, but not visually. I don't know what a toddler presentation is that other than the visual. So what about, how do you know it was him presenting himself as a toddler?
Because of the tone of his voice, he sounded like a toddler.
Did he say words to you in a toddler's voice? Or was it just a toddler?
Yes.
What words did he say to you?
I'm sorry, say that again?
How do you know it was him?
Yeah, Eric was asking what words did he say, and I was asking how you knew it was him.
Yeah, we'll go with Matt's question. How do you know it was your son in toddler form?
Well, because of the way that his voice sounded. It sounded like a toddler's
Vicky,
voice.
How do you tell the difference between your brain wrongly making up a scenario where a toddler's voice is something that you hear and you identify as your son, and your son actually putting on a toddler's voice after he's dead and talking to you? Those are two different things. They're both possible. How did you rule out some sort of mental break or aberration?
The only way I can explain it is that I knew I was angry with him. He was afraid to present himself as an adult, which he was when he passed, and came to me in that form because probably, I don't know, this is getting very complicated for me. But he was...
Here's the problem, Vicky. I didn't ask why he appeared in that form. I'm specifically saying you had an experience, and right now there are at least two candidate explanations. One is that there's something wrong in your brain and it made up a scenario that you believe is your son. And another one is that your son, despite being dead, manages to manifest as a toddler. How do we know which of those two is the correct one? And how do we know there's not some third option that we're not even aware of that's the correct one?
I'd have to say we don't.
Okay. So if we can't tell the difference between those two, why do you believe it was your son rather than believing that you have some sort of mental break, or saying, I don't know what it was?
Oh, gosh. I guess I want to believe that it was.
That's fine.
But I really don't know.
But would you say that it's rational to believe the things you want to when you don't have enough evidence to show that they're likely to be true?
No, I wouldn't say that was rational at all.
Me neither. And I appreciate that. And what I would say is that you, like a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, this is just what I'm thinking off the top of my head. You, like a lot of people, deal with grief in your own way. And it makes perfect sense to me that a parent, especially if they had a troubled child and they were angry with them and everything else, and the scenarios went down as this, it makes perfect sense to me that a parent might think that they were communicating with their child who had died and want it to be the case, especially because there's a lack of closure there. There's a frustration with the way everything happened. There is the loss of a child. And the very notion that you want to believe this and are leaning in that direction makes perfectly good sense from an emotional standpoint, but it does not make any sense, or it isn't rationally justified from the standpoint of reason. And so rather than going, hey, I don't believe in a God, but I have this experience and I'm afraid that if I acknowledge that I'm not convinced there's an afterlife, that will take away the experience I had, but it won't. What it will take away is the conclusion you reached about that experience, which may be wrong. And so for me, if I had what I thought was an experience with a loved one who had died, my takeaway from it, until there was sufficient evidence for me to conclude, yes, I most likely had an interaction with somebody who had died, is that this is most likely how my brain decided to deal with this trauma. And if in fact I am getting messages from the other side, cool, we should be able to put it to the test and we can get something useful. But if I'm not, then whatever message I'm getting is already a part of my subconscious. It's already something that I want to tell myself, and I'm looking for a MacGuffin or a puppet to tell me the message that I want. So listen to it. You can still value the experience because the experience is yours. The experience is about what you think and how you feel about this. But it's a mistake to conclude that you actually spoke to someone who was dead or had someone who was dead speak to you. But it doesn't matter, because you can still have an experience that, even if it's just a construct of your brain, can still be valuable to you. And you don't have to chuck it out. You just, for the same reason, you don't need to completely dismiss it. You also shouldn't be saying, oh, I know I spoke to my son, or I know my son spoke to me. Instead, you can say, I had this experience and I have viewed it as if my son spoke to me. I hope that's the case. I wish that were the case. I'd like to hear from them again. But that's separate from actually believing it did happen. And so it sounds to me, and I have no business doing this. I'm not making armchair diagnosis. I got no expertise here. It sounds to me like you sound like a pretty normal mom grieving and trying to make sense of your emotions and thoughts on the issue. And I would take all that and hold it completely separate from concerns about epistemology. Like, do I have good reason to believe there's a God? Do I have good reason to believe there's an afterlife? For now, those situations that you experienced are about you and your trauma and your psychology and your grief. And that's fine. And once again, I'll recommend the Secular Therapy Project as well, because neither myself nor Eric are experts on this. But that's my take on your thing, Vicky.
Yeah. And Vicky, if I could throw my 2 cents in there too. So I appreciated earlier when you answered that you are willing to entertain the idea that your interpretation, your conclusions about your experience may be wrong. Yeah. And as Matt just said, we're not saying that we know it's impossible for the dead to come back and visit us, that we know this definitely didn't occur in the way that you described it and what you attributed to. We're not eliminating those as possibilities. But we as skeptics, we look at the phenomenon and we go, what do we know that can commonly explain this? What are the things that we can look at that are most plausible in explaining the phenomenon? And I like to posit one of these to you right now. And I'm not sure if you ever looked this up or not, but have you ever heard of the term post-bereavement hallucination?
Well, I haven't heard of it, but it sounds logical.
Yeah, and this doesn't require post-bereavement hallucination is actually shockingly common amongst people. It doesn't involve mental breaks. It doesn't involve complete collapses of the psyche or mental breakdowns or anything like that. These are things that healthy, balanced people experience when they encounter or when they endure the death of a loved one or death of a close friend. In fact, there's another atheist YouTuber. He's mentioned this publicly, so I don't think he'd mind if I were to mention it. And I don't know him personally either. His name is Vice Rhino. He's an atheist YouTuber. His wife died suddenly a few years ago, And he himself experienced post-bereavement hallucinations. He heard her voice. He could feel her touch. And he looked at that phenomenon the same way that you're looking at that phenomenon and trying to figure it out and explain it, as you should. He looked at it and he said, you know what? I know that people experience these things. This is a very common thing. And I'm now experiencing it myself. And so he looked at the probabilities, the likelihood. He built his confidence levels in the different explanations. And as a skeptic and as an atheist, he leans away from the supernatural ones because we have very poor evidence for those types of phenomenon. And we have very good evidence for natural explanations like post-bereavement hallucinations, in more extreme cases, mental breaks, and even like things like false memories and imagination and just a grief-roasted brain desperately clinging towards any answer that can bring any type of hope. So it's up to you to obviously, it's a tragedy that you endured, two tragedies from what it sounds like. It sounds like you have a bit of healthy distance, time has passed, and you're able to look back and kind of more objectively reflect upon what's happened. It's up to you to be responsible and to look at that and go, what are the likelihoods of these different explanations? Am I considering all the possible explanations? Am I leaning towards explanations that are more common, more plausible, rather towards explanations that are less common, less plausible, but I perhaps have like an emotional a longing for, people lose loved ones all the time. I've lost loved ones. The desire to think that they're living on somewhere is strong, and that can cloud our judgment. So I implore you to look into that. Post-bereavement hallucinations, it happens in many, many, many people. As some studies show, up to 50 or 60% of individuals can experience this. And that's not 50, 60% of people have lost loved ones hallucinating or losing their minds. It's just a normal part of the grieving process that we humans go through. So I encourage you, look it up, recontextualize your experiences, and ask yourself, am I really going towards the more reasonable conclusion, or am I being drawn emotionally or irrationally towards one that I prefer to be true?
What you're saying is very encouraging. May I mention one more episode?
Sure.
Yep.
I had a friend who died not too far away. I mean, it happened within the last 2 years. And I was with him the night he died. And I did tell him, if you can come back, please do. Show me a sign. Well, I have a little nativity scene that I've always liked just because it's made out of wood. Not that like I said, I'm not religious, but I had not put it away. And this happened in the summertime. It was sitting on top of a bookshelf. And as I walked past the bookshelf, one of the figurines, which was in the back of this display, flew off of the bookshelf and landed at my feet. There was no one else in the room. I didn't hallucinate this because I picked it up and put it back where it was supposed to be. And I can't explain that one either.
Cool. Neither can I. And if we can't explain something, then we shouldn't be reaching any conclusion about it, should we?
Well, I guess not.
Yep. Like, I could think of a bunch of different things that could potentially explain that. But I don't have any way to investigate it. What's weird though is that let's be as charitable about it as possible. What do you think that could possibly mean? Like, if you're going to attribute some significance to this figurine flying or moving off or falling off, whatever it is, what significance could that possibly be, and why would it be presented in that way?
I tried to evaluate whether we'd had a tremor. Sometimes things fall and you have a tremor. That didn't happen. And I was just totally confused and perplexed by it. I guess I attributed it to this man showing me that he was still, watching me or in my life somehow. But I don't know of any other explanation for it. What are your explanations for it that you said you had?
Well, maybe there was some banging on the wall that rattled things that you didn't hear. Maybe there was a mouse in the cabinet that knocked it over and tipped it, and you just didn't see that. Maybe there was a loose thread that you couldn't see that was wrapped around something, and it got tugged when the door opened. A bit of cobweb. Maybe an earthquake that was too subtle for you, but this thing was precariously balanced. I don't know, because I don't have the ability to investigate the actual item and the thing it was in at the time. I'm just saying that if we're talking about how could something like this happen, there are a number of different potential explanations. They may not apply to that specific situation, which is why my first answer was I don't know.
I'm going to shamelessly promote one of my videos on my channel because I actually addressed just a phenomenon like this. I have a video on my channel on demons, and I was referring to an anecdote of a family that I knew that had a vase on their shelf which rotated in place on its own as the day went by. Now, there were three explanations that we had gone over. The family that I had spoken to was attributing it to demons. Obviously, the vase was bought at a garage sale. You don't know where that item came from. You don't know what demonic rituals it could have been used in. So obviously, they had brought a demon into their house with that vase. That was their explanation. But turns out the real explanation was a subwoofer system, a speaker and subwoofer system against the same wall, causing vibrations and rattling, which caused the vase to turn in place on its own. And if that doesn't convince you, I also have a clip on it, which you can also look at on YouTube. It's I can't remember the exact name, but just do a search for Vase Turns in Place Museum. And there's a time-lapse footage of a vase turning in place and moving along the glass. And it's time-lapse, so it's like 24 hours over about 30 seconds. And you can obviously see that the vase only moves when people are nearby, doors are opening and closing. Human activity nearby causing minor changes to the position of this vase over the course of the day. And people look at that and go, oh my God, demons. When really there's a naturalistic, rational explanation that we just simply cannot see. And you mentioned that earlier. You were saying, hey, these are the explanations that I see. I can't think of anything else. What about you guys? And we gave you our possibilities. But maybe the real explanation is nothing we've covered. Maybe it's not your explanation or any of the ones Matt and I proposed. There could be any number of explanations that we have yet to consider. The fact that we don't know the answer doesn't give us license to pick whatever answer we prefer, whether that be comforting or thrilling or exciting or whatever. We have to just simply say, this was weird. We need to gather data, but for right now, we just don't know. And that's okay. It's okay to sit back and say, I don't know what the explanation is. Definitely don't jump to conclusions without your evidence, though.
Right. And I was concerned that my atheism was being affected by these beliefs that I was holding. Even though I don't believe that God did that, but some spirit did that. Are atheists allowed to believe in spirits or not? I mean, is that just totally out of the realm?
I think it depends on your definition of spirit, but yes or no, depending on that.
Atheism is just about whether or not you believe in a God. I'm an atheist in part because I'm a skeptic, which is why I also don't believe in spirits. I think the very concept of a soul is the single most obviously false notion that has ever been included in theism, because everything that we would attribute to a soul is something that is an identifiable feature of a functioning brain. And since the brain not only does not have any evidence that it survives death, but it is also physical and malleable. So if you suffer from a particular condition or a physical impairment on the brain, it can fundamentally change your personality, your identity. We've had people go from being believers to non-believers. We have had split brain patients where they've severed the corpus callosum, I think, where two halves of the brain can now communicate independently. One speaks, the other one writes. And in one case, one of them believed in a God and the other one did not. So you essentially have two completely different individuals communicating and thinking and having separate beliefs all within one brain. The math with souls doesn't make any sense. That nobody's ever presented any feature of a soul that is identifiable and provable that is anything other than an apparent manifestation of a functioning mind. And so not only do we not have any good reason to believe that there's any such thing as souls, we have insufficient evidence to think that they're doing anything, and that would be me. Like, if I like chocolate ice cream and Doctor Who, and then I get hit in the head, and all of a sudden I hate chocolate ice cream and Doctor Who, but I like vanilla ice cream and The Bachelor. Am I still the same person? Did something fundamentally change about my soul? And while it may seem silly to go with those preferences, since we know it can also impact reasoning, and it can impact emotion and memory, it can also impact whether or not I'm a believer. So let's say I'm a Christian and I get whacked on the head, and after that I'm an atheist. How does that fit in a model of Christianity? Is my soul still a Christian, but my brain won't let it steer this ship as a Christian? Or did the damage to my brain somehow change the soul? There's nothing about any of this that makes any sense, except for we know there's a physical brain. We are exploring how and why it works. And we know that if you do damage to these portions of the brain, it will fundamentally change the person in this way. If you apply electrical current or certain chemicals or whatever else, you can impact people in the other way. And so I think the notion that there's a soul is flatly false, not just unproven, but almost certainly not true.
I agree with you. I also want to say that I am an aficionado of Christopher Hitchens, the late Christopher Hitchens, and I have now become an aficionado of you, Matt, and whoever your guest speaker.
Yeah. Here, let my last piece of advice to you be find somebody better than me. But I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Thanks, Vicky. I appreciate it. And consider reaching out to Recovering from Religion. There's other people going through the same thing. And also there's an organization called Grief Beyond Belief that might have resources for you. I'm very sorry about your loss. I appreciate your openness and answering the questions here. And I hope you find peace. Genuinely.
Okay, thank you. I will look that up.
Good night, Vicky.
Oh. Eric, you know what I got?
What do you got, Matt?
I got an announcement for everybody who's watching. Thank you to everybody who tuned in, by the way. I will say that, oh, wait, I have the old one. That's from June 9th. I just about read off all the shows for the next week, starting with June 9th. So I guess Arden can get me the updated one. But I know on tomorrow's Skeptalk, it's Shannon Q. On Chewed Gum, it's going to be, I can't even announce that yet either. So when the producer gets me the updated one, because she's awesome, and I know she's going to, we'll do that. But we've got another theistic caller right here. Wait. Oh, I think we lost them, and then they came back. Okay. So, because it says, so Milton in Maine, pronouns are him, is a theist wanting to talk about religion being good for society and the evolutionary argument against naturalism. Milton, did you get dropped and get picked back up? Because it looks like you've been here for 3 minutes, but I thought I saw your thing like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. There was some kind of internet issue, and I had to get back on because I disconnected. But
Sure.
I'm back.
Well, awesome. Then I'm glad I remembered your question and moved you right up to the front because there's other theists. So you're on the air with Matt and Eric. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's like 9:30 where I am, so a bit quiet.
I will say this. Since you've got two topics, I'm going to completely end one of them right now, and then we can just focus on the other one. So the notion that religion is good for society is something that I'm not convinced is necessarily true, but I don't care if it is, because I only care if the religion is true. There are plenty of things that might in fact be beneficial, and my concern is not whether or not they're beneficial, but whether or not they're true. As a matter of fact, I'll fully acknowledge that being a part of a religion is very frequently beneficial. It provides community and any number of other things that are completely independent from whether the religion's true. So let's set aside whether or not the entire discussion about religion being good for society and just let you do your evolutionary argument against naturalism and see where that goes.
Okay, that's pretty good anyway, because we probably wouldn't disagree on much. I would also say there are contexts in which religion is bad for society, but I'll focus on the evolutionary argument against naturalism. The best way to sum this up would essentially be what does evolution select for? It selects for survivability. It does not select for truth, for knowledge. So why is it that if we are creatures who evolve through the process of evolution that selects for survivability and not truth, why is it that we can claim to know so many true things and claim to be right about those?
We can claim to know true things. Of course, I've heard this many times. It's planting us.
Okay, I thought you.
So
would
we can claim that something is true. That's independent of whether or not we can demonstrate it. There's a deep philosophical issue about whether or not we can demonstrate that anything's true. But I'll point out that, first of all, I'm not a philosophical naturalist. I'm a methodological naturalist. So, but for those who aren't familiar, Milton, let me try this and then see if I've done the argument you're presenting service. So Plantinga's view, or his argument for this, is basically evolution selects for traits that impact survival. I'm going to change it slightly because I think that evolution demonstrably selects for some things and select against some things. And yet the goal of both of those is survival and passing on genes. So rather than leads to survival, I'm just going to say impacts survival. Some true beliefs, there are beliefs about the world that we might have that could lead to survival. And there are some false beliefs that could also lead to survival. And so if evolution is concerned about survival, then it is selecting for and against some things that are true and for and against some things that are false. And so Plantinga's conclusion is essentially that because there's a low probability that a given belief that benefits or aids survival is true, therefore we can't make naturalism is not a reliable path to truth. We can't show we know stuff. Is that fair enough?
That was pretty good.
Okay. So here's my short rebuttal. Well, as short as I can get it.
I do have a question though, because before you do the rebuttal, because you said that you weren't a philosophical naturalist. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So,
and for
what are your beliefs?
20 years. I don't have any idea. See, philosophical naturalism is the notion that the natural world is in fact all there is. I don't know how you demonstrate that. I don't know. I don't even necessarily know that that is falsifiable in actuality, but methodological naturalism assumes that the natural world does in fact exist, doesn't make any proclamations about anything beyond the natural world, and can consider every viable cause. To assert that the natural world is all there is, in my view, to assert that there is nothing supernatural. And I don't know how you can possibly demonstrate that because supernatural claims, to my understanding, aren't testable or falsifiable. And so somebody who's advocating for philosophical naturalism either needs to be doing it in the context of, this is my default assumption, I'm not declaring that philosophical naturalism is true, or they need to demonstrate that nothing but the natural world exists, and I don't know how you do that. And so instead, I'm a methodological naturalist, which is I use the natural world because it's apparent it exists. And if in fact something supernatural exists, then we would need a way to detect it, identify it, and we don't have that. So it's not me saying there is no supernatural. It's me saying, for now, I have no path to confirming the supernatural. Is that clear?
Okay, that makes sense. Methodological naturalism is something that scientists use. I've always thought of it as more of a tool rather than a worldview.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like a tool that scientists use, and philosophical naturalism is an actual worldview that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's one that I don't hold because I don't know how you could demonstrate it. But You could, as Plantinga has tried, show that somehow something about naturalistic evolution is in conflict with philosophical naturalism. Here's my rebuttal to that. First of all, evolution selects against and for traits. And it's going to select for traits that are beneficial to survival, and it's going to select against traits that are harmful to survival. It doesn't in any way have the capacity to evaluate whether or not beliefs are true. It just evaluates whether or not the traits, in this case, this is kind of where Plantinga shifts, because he talks about traits in the first premise and then beliefs in the other premise. So his argument, as it's typically presented, is problematic, if not outright invalid in structure. Because while naturalistic evolution will select for the consequences of what your brain does, it's not necessarily selecting for any discrete belief. You might believe there's water, in my backyard, 50 feet down. How and why you believe that is where we determine what's rational. Whether or not it's true is whether or not it's consistent with the facts of reality. And so you could have this is Plantinga's argument, essentially. You could have a false belief that leads to something that actually benefits survival. But that's not what evolution is selecting for. It's not selecting for any specific belief's discrete truth value. It is selecting for the heuristic assessment that takes place in my mind and whether or not it is sufficiently wrong that it would inhibit my survival, or if it's sufficiently, it determines whether or not it's beneficial to my survival. There's not a conscious thing here. It's kind of difficult to describe it in the terms of like evolution as a goal. So in some cases, it may select against traits that inhibit my survival, but the process that it's selecting is the heuristic model in my brain and not the individual beliefs, because the heuristic model that I have, where when I assess a claim, it could sometimes get stuff right and sometimes get stuff wrong. And so you take that heuristic, just like a little software algorithm. It might not be the most optimal. It might not be the most efficient code running. It might make some errors. But if that particular app, if that piece of code is not sufficiently negative for evolution to cut it, then it's going to get passed along, and that's all it takes. Anybody who's saying, yeah, but that doesn't tell you whether or not your beliefs are true. Correct, because that's not the function of evolution, and it's also not the function of philosophical naturalism. Neither of them have anything to do with whether or not a belief's true. So Plantinga is saying, hey, evolution doesn't really care whether your beliefs are true or not. They only lead to survival. The answer is yes. And you know what? The heuristic model in my brain that most aids survival is the one that is most accurate in assessing some portions of reality. It might have mistakes in it. It might mean that a single individual belief is in fact false. But would you agree, Milton, that if your heuristic generally produces a more accurate model, even if it is sometimes false, that would be good enough for it to pass along to the next generation?
I would generally agree with that. Yeah.
Cool.
But I would like to raise a different and phrase it a different way, perhaps. Instead of talking about beliefs, perhaps let's talk about your logical faculties, your brain, and then other such things that did evolve to do a variety of different things, such as excuse me, I'm getting a little tired. My brain's not fully there.
Should try being 55 in pain on pain meds, and anyway, keep going.
It's very late here. It's almost 10 o'clock. No, I was just saying, instead of beliefs, let's just talk about the brain itself, the logical faculties, as opposed to belief.
Well, that's what I was talking about with the heuristic. Basically, you
Mhm.
could look at it as a heuristic or the brain itself. It could either be the code that's running on the brain or the brain. In both cases,
Mhm.
the only thing that evolutionary model cares about is whether or not it is how my brain functions with respect to passing on my genes.
Mhm. Could it be that there's something in there that could be beneficial to survival that might mislead us as far as the machinery of the universe? Like it
Yes.
is
I think that
essentially, yeah.
religion is a prime example of a package of beliefs that have undeniably benefited us and yet do not have the evidentiary warrant to justify believing that they're true. And I think there are plenty of other things other than, I mean, I use religion as the easy example because it's what we talk about. But yeah, you could absolutely have a thought process that leads to false beliefs that are beneficial and therefore passed on to the next generation. I think we have lots of those.
Yeah. But on the flip side, Milton, just like we see in nature and in evolution, what can one time have been beneficial can suddenly turn into a detriment if the environment changes sufficiently. And I personally think that we're at a point in history now where religion's becoming far more of a threat than any type of help to our existence. While you mentioned earlier, you have the question, is religion good for society? I mean, we can talk about the goods and the bads in religion, and do a preponderance and evaluate and come up with some type of average and say yes, good or bad. I whether or not it's on average good or on average bad, I think it is at least nowadays swaying heavily towards the bad, because we're hitting a point where we have the means to destroy ourselves numerous times over. That could be in the hands of people who are not thinking rationally, using outdated means of evaluating the world. So it's we religion might have helped our survival at some point, but because our environment has changed, religion now could potentially become a detriment, become a hindrance to us surviving. Which is one of the reasons why Matt and I do what we do, is where we're talking about these things, because our environment has changed. Therefore, the criteria by which we evaluate whether something good or bad has changed as well.
I guess I don't see how religion in particular would dictate how likely someone is to destroy the world, unless their religious belief specifically said to do that for whatever reason.
So you don't think that there are a number of different religious groups and sects that have end time prophecies that they are trying to help enact, like Christianity and sidling up to Judaism, specifically to usher in an apocalyptic future?
I'm not aware of the majority of individuals in that faith trying to do that. I think there's a
Why on earth did we have to go to it's the majority? Are you not aware that there are Christian nationalists and that there are end times things? That I have a series of books and videos over there that go through all of this, and that there are people constantly praying for what's going on in Israel specifically because they think it's a sign of the return of Christ. Are you saying that that's not a significant portion of some set of the Christian population?
I'm not going to make estimates on how much is here.
Well, then maybe you shouldn't have started with,
I don't
think
know.
most of them are doing it, because most isn't really relevant.
Yeah.
But keep going with whatever you got.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's always good, and in some contexts, religion definitely could be a lot worse. So, for example, this is an example that was given to me quite recently. If an individual decides that they want to kill you, you couldn't really reason with them. You couldn't really say murder is wrong. Well, they don't think it's wrong. They're going to murder you. You can make an appeal to, okay, well, if you do it, then you're going to have law enforcement after you. You're going to have the judiciary system after you, and you're making threats of physical violence. But if that individual believes that God himself has told them to kill you, then there's really nothing you can do about it. And so,
So what?
I think
That's
basically
an argument for a problem with religion, then.
Yeah, but I think it also can work the same way for good things. And so I do generally think that people are more good than bad. And so more often than not,
good
for
thing?
most people, religion will be
So
good.
we seem to have shifted over to the topic that I was going to skip and I don't care about, because I care about whether the religious claims are true, not whether or not they're potentially beneficial. But out
This
of
could be the last
curiosity,
time we talk about it.
but out of
Okay.
curiosity, can you name a real, true benefit to society that can only be achieved through religion and not by secular means?
Most of the benefits to society in the form of religion tend to make the already existing benefits much better. But certainly, one thing that individuals can often be relieved from in the form of religion is our fear of death. I think that's one thing in particular that
I asked,
if you don't
I
have
asked for an
religion,
example of a real, true benefit that can only be achieved by religion and not by secular means. I don't have a fear of death, and that was addressed by purely secular means. Do you have an example of what I've asked?
or you're asking for something on the societal level, not the individual level, right?
I want you to list any real, true, positive benefit from a religion that cannot be achieved by purely secular means.
I gave the example of fear of death. You said you have secular means to reason out of that. I'd like to hear what they are.
Milton, do you think there are non-religious people who don't fear death?
I think there are non-religious people who don't fear death when death is not.
So religion's not required. So religion is not required to contend and eliminate the fear of death.
Wait, I think what I said was a bit misunderstood, or maybe I just said it improperly. There might be, and probably are, religious people out there who don't fear death, but there are no non-religious people out there who think that their life is going to continue after death.
So
correct.
The fear.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're conflating these two things here. We're talking about the fear of death. Yeah, you're conflating the two things of fear of death plus the continuation, the desire to continue life. Those two aren't the same, right? So I could not fear death. I could desire to live longer, but I could also not fear death. They're not mutually exclusive.
Okay. Most atheists that I've talked to have said something to the effect of, I probably wouldn't want to live forever, but I might want to live a little bit longer than.
None of that's relevant. None of that's relevant, Milton. I don't care what other atheists have said to you. I'm talking about, we were having a really good discussion. We started with an honest back and forth treatment of the evolutionary argument against naturalism and what my response was. And now we're on to this. And so all I want is an example of some real, true, positive benefit that can only come from a religion and cannot come from secular means. If you seem to equivocate between whether or not you fear death and whether or not you have or think you have an afterlife. Well, first of all, it's not true that you have an afterlife just because you believe you have one. And by the way, I can come up with a completely secular lie about an afterlife that serves the exact same function as whatever story a religion is advocating for. I've been doing this for 20 years, and for 20 years, I've asked people, can you present a real, true benefit that can only be provided by religion and not from secular sources? And the answer apparently is no, because despite putting steak dinners up on it and $500 gift cards and countless other things over 20 years, nobody has ever been able to come up with an example of a real, true, positive benefit that can only be achieved through religion. And what do they go to most of the time? Comfort or thoughts about an afterlife. But those things aren't demonstrably true. And you can come up with a comforting lie. And in fact, the real question here, which I didn't push onto you because I wanted to start with, can you give me a benefit that's provided only from religion? The real issue here is, can you provide a benefit that is real and true and good that only exists because the religion is in fact true? Like, I have hope in an afterlife because there is in fact a God in an afterlife. That is something that hasn't been demonstrated.
Oh, I definitely can see with that last point that definitely not. I don't think, because what you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think you're asking is there some benefit to religion that everyone could essentially enjoy? Because there are people who fear death and there are people who don't fear death. But
Yep.
I do not think there's one thing about religion that will work for everyone. In other words, I don't think religion will work for everyone. I don't think it will solve everyone's problems.
Do you identify with a particular religious doctrine?
The LDS Church.
Okay, so you're a Mormon. I don't know enough about Mormonism. In contrast with other versions of Christianity, to be able to know what question I should ask. So my apologies if this is confusing or does not properly fit with Mormonism. But if Mormonism were true, wouldn't it be true for everyone? And wouldn't everyone have equal access to a demonstration of that truth?
Yes.
Then how do you square that with the claim you just made that you aren't aware of any such demonstrable truth for any religion?
Well, I didn't say any truth. I said a benefit because I was talking about the benefits before.
You don't think it'd be beneficial to be a part of the true religion?
I think it'd be more beneficial for some people, and other people are probably more able to, like, people are able to have a meaningful life without believing everything that's true. Is basically what I'm saying.
Isn't there also an afterlife in your model to consider?
Yeah, I would point out that the LDS Church does not believe that people who are not we don't believe that people who aren't members of our church are going to be punished for that. It's a little bit. We're kind of
but I'm not going to get my own universe where I'm a god, am I?
Oh no, I don't believe that.
But you will, right?
No. I don't believe that. I don't. What? Yeah, I don't believe that.
But the Mormon Church does.
We could debate that. I don't believe in it personally, so yeah.
So you're a member of the LDS religion, but you don't accept all of its tenets and doctrines?
I would argue that's not a doctrine of the church. I believe Orson Pratt.
Maybe you only get your own planet, not a universe. You get your own planet.
And no, you don't.
No,
there's
okay.
There's nothing in the Doctrine and Covenants that says you're going to get your own planet.
Okay.
Just a very brief. Oh, do you want me to?
No,
explain why I don't think
that's not where your take is. So basically, Milton, you're an LDS, and what reason would anyone have to become a member of the LDS Church if there's, I mean, do you have a way to demonstrate that it's truth? And if like I'm not a Mormon and I'm not going to get a bad hell, why would I convert?
I don't think there's I don't feel as much of an urgency to convert people as some other individuals do. So you pointed out it's very much true. Like I have lots of friends who aren't members of the church, and I don't feel this urgency to convert them. So that is very much the reason to convert in this life would probably be you get a better sense of community. You get to learn the truth sooner. You get the benefits in this life rather than the benefits in the next life. So you basically get that sooner. But some people don't want that, and I'm perfectly okay with that. So
I'm going to recommend that you call back when Jimmy's on.
Speaking of which, Jimmy and I are on 5 p.m. Central Time next week, next Sunday. Jimmy and I will be here. You can talk to him. Jimmy's a former Mormon.
Yeah, I was going to talk to him because I know he's a former Mormon, but I was too late. So.
Yeah, he was on earlier today. He'll be on more.
Yep.
Matter of fact, he's as Eric just let me just make the announcement real quick. So right now we're doing Sunday show after dark. Monday Skeptalk's gonna be Shannon Q. Tuesday's Chewed Gum's gonna be Alyssa Ljub. I'm gonna be on the Hang Up on Wednesday. Maybe I do not currently have a guest, basically I'm going for oral surgery and I get back in Austin like an hour and a half before the show's supposed to start. So I don't know what kind of state I'm going to be in mentally or physically. And so I didn't want to book anybody else. Maybe I'll just beg Eric to come do the Wednesday show on 2 minutes notice. Maybe we'll skip Wednesday night show, but Thursday's Transatlantic Call-In show, which starts at 2 p.m. is Arden Hart and Luxander. And I will be on next week's Sunday show with Seth Andrews. And then Jimmy will be on Sunday show after dark with Eric. And that would be a good time, Milton, for you to call in. It's curious to me because, obviously if you're not proselytizing on behalf of Mormonism, and I don't care whether or not, religion has benefits, because it does, whether it's true or not. Have we at least dismantled the evolutionary argument against naturalism from the standpoint that you were presenting?
Yeah, I think you've dismantled it quite a bit. It's not my favorite argument. It's just I was curious to hear what you think about it, because I haven't seen a clip where you talked about this argument before.
It doesn't come up. Yeah, it doesn't come up very often.
Yeah. I also find that most people who say it in a way that is very bad. And there are some arguments out there, like I'm sure you know what I mean when I say there are some arguments that ultimately are not convincing, but they're still very interesting to think about. Like the argument from change for the existence of God is ultimately not convincing for me, but I find that one very interesting.
I'm gonna let you go, Milton, and recommend you call him when Jimmy's on for more stuff. But let's just leave this one on a good note, and we'll dig in on something else another time.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, thanks.
Matt, an hour and a half after you get home from surgery, you're gonna do a show. I just want to put it out there right now. Don't do that to yourself. If you need somebody to fill in, I'll be more than happy to fill in for you. So,
well, here's the thing. I fly out Tuesday morning. I have surgery Tuesday afternoon. I'm going to sleep at my brother's house Tuesday night. Wednesday, I fly back. And so I land at like 5:00. And assuming I'm medicated and not in absolutely miserable pain, I want to do a show. Wednesday's my therapy. Now, if you want to pre-commit, like if you've got Wednesday free, you just come in, and if I feel up to doing the show, you and I could do the show Wednesday. And if I don't feel up to doing it, then either we can cancel it or you can run it on your own, if that's fine. But
okay, sounds good.
See there, Arden? Did you see what I just did? I just got a co-host for Wednesday or a possible substitute, all just by putting somebody under the fucking spotlight on the show.
It's about time you do your fair share.
Shots fired.
Fair. That is completely fair. All right. We have two atheists on the line, but we have one theist that we're going to put through first. Skylar from Florida, pronouns are they, them, wants to discuss a conflict between personal experience and development of false memories. So, Skylar, you're on with Matt and Eric.
Hi. So, I come from a more fundamentalist like background. And so like in the church that I grew up in, which I'm no longer a part of, but I still believe in God. There's a lot of priming for certain like interpretations of events, if that makes sense.
Priming for interpretations of events.
I think it may make sense. I think you just need to give a little extra detail so that we make sure we're on the same page and everybody listening understands. Because I kind of think I know, but I don't want to just assume and run with it. So let's get more detail.
So like a common thing was like if someone like passed away, or someone got into a car crash and like they were in the hospital and like they recovered suddenly, it would be like looking for little things to interpret as like divine intervention.
So
Or like,
are you just saying that
later
occasionally,
on,
because of what we've learned interacting society, that we might be more inclined towards certain things?
more that like the framework that you use to view the world like influences how you see things and remember things, and how like
Okay.
this creates almost a conflict between our like personal experiences and like what we know to be true or what we can reason to be true.
You've completely lost me, because it sounds like you're just saying our experiences influence what sort of conclusions we make about experiences. And my response to that is, duh. What am I missing, Skylar?
I think it more like along the lines of like it's difficult for people to reason about certain things because of personal experiences. Or
It
like
can
we
be,
have
yes.
certain sets of beliefs that are more ingrained because of personal beliefs that like we think we remember a certain way, but like I think as evidenced by a lot of studies, like what we remember tends to get more and more exaggerated over time.
Yeah, I'm really having difficulty figuring out what point you're trying to get to, because of course our experiences impact our ability to evaluate situations honestly. We have biases. We are occasionally not good at reasoning, and some people's life experience may make it more difficult for them to reason accurately about some situations. All of this is just, yeah, and
So I think like more like what I wanted to like talk about was more like how like this influences like I'm sorry, I'm really hard at putting words together right now. Um More like how like if you're looking for certain things and you want to like you want to believe through things. How do we get past the biases and like personal experiences? Like how do we make that jump from believing something is true to reasoning that it's probably not true?
So Skylar, let me maybe I think I see where you're getting at here. Let me maybe kind of reframe it in kind of with an illustration, and then maybe we'll see we're on the same page here. Let's say let's say we're in a hospital and we have a patient and we have x-rays of this patient. Something's wrong. We're not sure what it is, but the patient's ill. We show the x-rays to an oncologist, and that oncologist, having dealing with cancer most of his career, might be biased towards seeing cancer. And we show it to somebody who's a cardiovascular expert, and they see issues related to the cardiovascular system. And we do that with 5, 10, 15, 20 different doctors of different fields, and they're all biased towards their field of study. So your question is, how do we cut through those bias and actually get to the truth? As if we were looking at that x-ray? Okay. How would doctors do that? How do
I
doctors
think
do
there
that?
would be like I think like if you looked at like certain things, there would be like specific patterns that would align with certain conclusions. But then like those
Well,
patterns
I'm more
could
asking,
also align.
I'm more asking how those 20, 30, 40 doctors would get together and actually come to the proper conclusion. Because it happens all the time. We have doctors who have different opinions about the data they see, and they manage to come together and cure people. So how do doctors actually do this in real life right now?
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not an expert on the subject.
No worries.
I believe they would like do a bunch of tests to try and like narrow down which ones
Yeah.
are like evidentiarily wrong.
Yeah, they would come up with hypotheses and collect data, run tests to falsify those hypotheses. If a hypothesis is falsified, they would discard it, come up with a new one. Or if the data seems to support a hypothesis, they will look at it and refine it, and collaboratively together work together and get closer to the conclusion by working together. And when you have multiple different people with multiple different outlooks and multiple different biases all agreed upon the same thing, chances are, likelihood, that thing might be true. Definitely more true or likely to be true than if they are all disagreeing about it or they all have different ideas. So let's take that and apply that to just the world in general. We have atheists, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have all kinds of, religious and non-religious outlooks. So how do we all get together and analyze a question like, does a God exist? Does the soul persist after death? Is there such a thing as spirits or demons? Any of those questions. How do we all get together and analyze these things and come closer to the truth, a truthful answer on these things? How would you propose we do that?
I think that's where like I start to have issues with like applying skepticism to religion, because it's almost like I don't know how you could falsify religious claims. I don't think you can, in a way. And so, like, when you start to look for evidence that might comport with, like, reality, it becomes hard because none of it falsifies, but also none of it is at the same time confirming the belief, if that makes sense.
I think so. I appreciate you. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, it's not important. It's just, it seems to me like the question is, how do we minimize individual bias in our pursuit of truth? And the answer, which, I mean, I could sum up in one word, science, but what we really mean, the values of science, the key aspects of science are independent peer review, that we present the data, what we did, and the findings. And the goal is for other people who have an understanding of this to make every attempt to rip it apart and show every flaw in it. And if in fact we are rigorous in that, then that will help us eliminate, sneeze. That'll help us eliminate or minimize the bias, because it's no longer about, I did this, here's my tests, here's my results, I think I've got it done, and then you just run with it. No. Then you submit it to somebody else. And so when Eric was talking about what do doctors do, well, you're going to get several doctors together and you're going to present all the findings of the various tests you've run, make your case for a particular diagnosis, and the other people there with similar expertise should be, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about, did you test for this? Did you consider this? Could it be this? And after passing around all those things, you get a consensus. And now, because you've got a consensus from experts that is rooted in an assessment of the data, the biases of one individual are either shared by all of those that agree, or they're not a factor. And so that's the value of peer review and opening this up to the public, because while any one person could have biases that completely throw off their findings, or how they're going to assess it or what conclusion they're going to reach based on the data, the odds that 20 different experts have those same flawed personal biases is lowered. And that's the best that we can kind of do. Does that answer your question, Skylar? Is it good enough?
I'm sorry. I think my phone dropped for like a little bit near the end there.
So when you're using the methods of science,
lowering probability or something.
If one person does a bunch of tests and then pronounces their conclusion, you have a strong chance that their biases impact that conclusion. If that paper is submitted to 20 other scientists to review and they agree with the results, the odds that all 21 scientists share the same problematic bias is at least part of the process, or we have lowered the likelihood that that individual's biases are a problem. So either whatever bias the person conducting the study has is shared by all of the people that agree with the conclusion, or that bias isn't relevant and they're actually assessing the data without respect to that bias. Does that make sense?
I think it does, yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
I think
I
just
think
kind
that
of
was...
go ahead, Skylar.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I'm going to throw a little bit of fuel on the fire, though, when it comes to this. There's a big difference, though, when it comes down to, when we're talking about doctors looking at, data and determining what's the best way to treat a patient versus all these competing religious groups in the world, all vying for basically dominance and getting the most believers and such. The major difference between the two analogies, and this is kind of where the illustration breaks down, is generally, and I really hope this is the case nearly universally, all doctors want to do is cure the patient. They want to see the patient become well again and to continue living a long, healthy life. And if that means that their conclusion is wrong and the data shows that their hypotheses, their conclusions are wrong, they're happy to drop those and entertain new ideas. Religions don't do that. Religions typically, and we see this universally, I would say universal with a capital U, amongst apologists, is that their conclusions are correct because they're going to bat for this. And we see we see apologists say that we basically see apologists ignoring data, ignoring proper methodology because they're trying to cling towards their preferred conclusions rather than what's best for the patient, or in this case, reality. So it's important when using this process to admit you have biases, which I agree, we all have biases on various different things, but also to check our goals, to determine that, hey, we are actually seeking truth here. We aren't seeking to be right. We're seeking to have a better understanding of reality and come closer to what the truth is. And that's a major difference we need to keep in mind.
I would agree with that. I think there are some religious people, I wouldn't say necessarily organizations, that do at least try to adopt what they believe is mostly true. I would hope I do that, and obviously I can't know for sure, but
yeah. I picked on apologists for the most part. I didn't say all religious people, and I probably maybe overstretched saying capital U universal, but I think generally, nearly universally, that's kind of the attitudes we see when it comes to this kind of stuff. Is it's not a pursuit of what's actually true; it's a pursuit of my conclusion is correct, and I need to show it somehow. I need to, all that. But no, I wasn't accusing you of that at all. So please don't interpret that as such.
No, I got that. I just was like.
Mm-hmm.
English isn't my first language, so
yeah, no worries.
I think that's all I really wanted to talk about tonight. So, and I thank you for your answers. So,
great.
Well, thank you, Skylar.
Thanks, Skylar. Appreciate it. All right, we got two more callers here, and this one dropped and came back. So even though it's been shorter, is now on for more. So Michael in Ireland, pronouns are him, has, I don't know, something to challenge us on. So Michael, you're on with Eric and Matt.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. Before I just begin, I just want to say thanks so much to Eric and you for all your hard work and everyone that works in the show. I suppose I was listening recently. As I do, listening back to all the shows, and there was a theist caller in, and he was challenging, your views on abortion, and of course, I would agree with almost all of your views, but one of the things that struck out to me was that he said that he could have a relationship with his child in the womb, and that was something I suppose that I would agree with, and I suppose as is the theme of the show, I suppose I looked up some evidence to try and back that up. And, let's say the health service in Ireland, the health service in the UK, they all recommend, speaking to your child in the womb, and they can hear you after 18 weeks, and after 24 weeks, they have fully developed ears. Well, not fully developed ears, but, they can, and at a certain point they can distinguish voices. And on the Irish Health Service website and many others, they say, you can comfort your child by talking to them. They can kind of get a relationship with the father. They can recognize the voice and stuff like this. I suppose the only reason I say it is because I suppose, to kind of close off these gaps that people could maybe undermine the arguments that I would have and maybe you might have around abortion and our views on it. But I was wondering, like, maybe you could clarify your views, or do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. I don't count that as a relationship. When we're talking about anything could be a relationship. I can have a relationship with this pair of glasses, but we're talking about interpersonal relationships. That requires a theory of mind of two individuals that recognize each other as two individuals. And while babies, even fetuses in the womb can hear things and react to those things, that doesn't mean that there's an actual interpersonal relationship between the two. That's all I was saying. That doesn't mean you can't love what's in your womb. Doesn't mean you can't care about it. You can certainly talk to it all you want, but when we're talking about this, somebody was saying, "Oh, I can have a personal relationship with the fetus." No, you can't, because the fetus doesn't have a theory of mind, doesn't know who you are, isn't able to process that, doesn't have the emotional intelligence for a relationship. It is reflexively reacting to sounds and things. That's it.
No, I totally understand. I suppose maybe before I became a parent myself, I would have naturally just agreed with you. I suppose
for fuck's sake.
maybe it's in my own head. I'd like to think that, maybe I developed a relationship with my child when he was in the womb, and then he recognized
you'd
me.
like to
my
think
voice,
that,
maybe.
but you're wrong. You'd like to think that, but you're
No.
wrong. And I'm completely exhausted. I'm completely exhausted from people coming in going, "Oh, I would have thought that until I had kids, but that changed my mind." Well, congratulations. Present some actual fucking evidence and not just some personal suspicion about how you would and wouldn't react. And then maybe you can convince me. But it's a special way of dismissing anyone who hasn't had that experience. When I don't need the experience, I need data, and theory of mind suggests that an infant in the womb does not have a theory of mind and therefore cannot have a personal relationship. If you think you have a relationship with something that does not have a relationship back, that's roughly the akin of stalking. It is delusion. It is not an interpersonal relationship. You can love that fetus and you can feel attached to it, but it is not an interpersonal relationship, period.
I would totally take that on board. I suppose from what I read, it's just things you can say, or maybe familiar voices like the parent or something can calm them if they feel distressed from maybe loud noises.
And talking to plants.
And
talking to plants.
I understand.
No.
Yeah.
Do you have a relation? Do your plants have a relationship with you?
Do you know what, Matt? Yeah, I get where you're coming from now. I'm glad I called in because it kind of gives me something to chew on now and kind of clarify this more and research it more. Like, obviously, I don't feel like my parent has a relationship with me, so no, that's fair enough.
I think it's a mistake to confuse the fact that someone can feel a certain way and another future person that doesn't yet have a theory of mind may still react to things. And we have, good evidence that, hey, the baby and the mother bond incredibly quickly. But still the babies don't have a theory of mind for a while. And I'm not in any way trying to disparage the strong connection that someone can develop with their unborn, eventually born, preborn, in the womb, whatever you want to call it, the baby that they're going to have. Of course it can feel like, oh, I've already got a relationship with it. But that already got a relationship with it I think is an evolutionary process of parents psyching themselves up for what they know is going to be the eventual consequences. And you can absolutely have a one directional, passion and compassion and what you might consider a relationship with it, but a fetus doesn't have a relationship with you. Not personal.
It's an interesting dynamic because vast majority of the people we deal with in life, we meet first time, they are a fully formed person. We develop a relationship with them. Our two minds are interacting, and either we grow closer as friends or grow apart as, not friends. Majority of people, we have that dynamic. But when it comes to from conception to birth to growing up to then becoming an adult, it is a one-sided parasocial relationship because you are a person and you are first dealing with something that is not a person. A single-celled fertilized egg, I would say, is not a person, despite what the Louisiana Supreme Court says or Alabama Supreme Court.
No, I would agree. I would agree.
Like, exactly. There's no mind there. There's no one to interact with. But at some point, and there's no clear line anywhere. There's no like, okay, at week 24 or week, 36 or after this amount of time after birth, there's no clear line that we can look at and say, now we have a person. Now a real relationship can form. It's a gradual process over time, and it just happens when it happens. And this is not me telling you what you're thinking or mistakes you're making. I have no idea because I don't have any kids. But at some point, you realize I have a person in my care, and a real relationship started forming, a real interpersonal relationship. And you may want to look at that and say, am I now taking what I'm feeling now and retroactively projecting it over my history with this entity? And that may perhaps be clouding your judgment a little bit because you're looking back and you're taking your feelings now and recontextualizing memories with those feelings in mind. And that potentially could be clouding your judgment a little bit. And again, just like Matt says, I'm not trying to minimize or disparage anything about your relationship with your child at all. You process that as you see fit. But what I'm simply saying is that you may perhaps be looking back with some rose-colored glasses because you're so happy about it now.
Oh no, I completely understand. No, as I say, I'm really glad I called in because your thoughts on it have given me a lot to chew on, and I suppose I'm not going to automatically just completely accept what you're saying. I'm going to do some more research and things, but I suppose just to clarify, I suppose I agree very strongly with your views on, women's autonomy, and I suppose, I want to look at it from all sides. And of course, I picked a really easy topic to call in my first call, of course. But I'm being sarcastic, but not to you. But no, it's important, I think, that we have discussions around this and just to clarify these things. And even for me, and that we all, and let's say I can have a stronger view, a more backed up view when it comes to presenting my arguments for why I think a woman should have autonomy and, despite these things, do you know what I mean? And, even as regards these things. So, it's a very important topic in my country and in Ireland. And I'm sure, we're all aware, I suppose, or many of us are aware of how important it is in your country as well and what's going on at the moment. And, it's very important that we take a stand and we make our views known, I suppose. And I would have been more reticent to do it in the past, but I suppose I see how important it is that we stand up for what we, a woman's autonomy now,
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I won't keep you anymore, Matt. I just want to thank you and Eric for your thoughts, and I'll leave it at that.
Cheers. Yeah. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
What a
I hope
shame
you buy your
that
child
this,
lots of toys and lots of candy.
What a
Sounds
shame
like
that Reno in chat decided to say that what I said was not really true. Define relationship. I did. I talked about it as a personal relationship and distinguished it between just being able to hear voices. And yet you continued with fetuses in the late stages can hear and recognize parents' voices. That's a relationship. You're wrong. Sorry. But your is YOU''RE, and you are in fact wrong. That's not a personal relationship. Being able to respond to a voice is no different from responding with a pleasant face when a parent eats a food that you like or don't like and giving an unpleasant face. The fact that there's a reaction does not mean there's a personal relationship, which is why I used the plant as the example. But next time in Reno, instead of tagging me and talking shit in chat with your unfounded assertions, you should call in, because that's the only way you're going to get addressed next time. All right. Final for today. Felix is calling from Texas. Pronouns are he, him. Felix, you are on the air with Eric and Matt. How are you?
Good. How y'all doing, man?
We're all right.
Good.
All right.
You need some WD-40, man.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I had to run inside. I was outside with my family. We were cooking now. I was listening on the phone.
No, it's fine. I need WD-40 on one of my doors too, which is why I was thinking about it.
Oh,
I need new doors.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I need some. No, for real. Not lying.
What's up?
Yeah, man. First, man, I want to give an apology to y'all, the call screener, Stephanie. I called them by the wrong pronouns. That shit is not cool, and I wanted to give a sincere apology to them about that.
Thank you.
No doubt. But yeah, so it's my first time calling, man. First off, big fan of the line in general, but especially, I'm sorry, Eric, love you too, but especially Matt. Dude, when I first converted, you were like one of the people I kind of helped guide me out of my deconversion. A lot of good advice you gave. I loved all the calls you had. My first time ever calling, so I'm kind of a little nervous, but I'm gonna go out. I'm kind of starstruck with you, Matt.
Well, you'll probably hate me by the time the call's over anyway, so it's all good.
Oh no, man! Shit, man! I know you're probably gonna rip my ass apart, but I don't care, man. You're cool. But yeah, man.
Well,
So all I want to talk about, so I don't know how to really go about talking about this, but you kind of talked about this earlier with the guy Muhammad about his family dealing with religious stuff. I think mine's a lot less. I don't want to say dramatic, but I guess dramatic, just because it's been so long since I deconverted that I've lost emotional attachment to religion. But so I know you had Matt. I've listened to you a lot. I know you've had your interactions with your parents and everything, and you talked about it before, but I want to know if there's any like fresh advice or fresh things you can give to talking to religious family members, kind of almost like coming out, because I kind of have to like walk on eggshells and like navigate minefields, trying to talk to my father, he's an old school Mexican traditional Catholic guy, and talking to him about anything like this is it's pretty tough. He's really laid back, chill guy, 99% of the time until religion comes up, and then it's like he can get, I guess, confrontational in a way. And I just I don't know. I just kind of looking for a little advice on how to deal with the situation, or I think you might tell me just not deal with the situation and just avoid it.
Well, Felix,
Yeah,
sorry. Felix, what would you say your goals are when it comes to interacting with your father and your family as a whole? Like, what are your priorities?
Well, just I want to be honest with them. I want to be honest with myself, and I don't want to. It's hard for me to give religion any kind of, credence or anything. So there's that. But I just want to be cordial, good with them. Like me and my dad actually have a really good relationship. So I want to keep that, but to also be true to myself and not lie to him about how I feel about stuff like that. Especially him being Catholic and all the controversy, I guess you could say, with the Catholic Church.
I don't know what else to add. I mean, it's if the goal is to just have a relationship with your dad, you can talk whenever you want.
Yeah.
If the goal is to change your dad, then I think you might have the wrong goal.
That's not something I really care to do. Like I said, I watched this show and had shows a lot and realized it seems damn near impossible to actually change somebody until they want to actually seek the truth and explore like things about religion, you know, deeply instead of the surface that the church will teach you and stuff like that.
Does your dad have an accurate understanding of your position? Like, are you out as an atheist to him? He understands your position and point of view on things, or
No,
is
I'm
there
not
like
really. Like I was saying. I'm sorry, I interrupted. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, it's just like I feel like I'm kind of tiptoeing around the subject. Like I haven't really come out completely as an atheist. It's more like, man, I don't know if I really believe all that, man. Like the man could have altered the Bible. We don't know. We don't have the original authors. We don't really know where this stuff came from. You know, it's like it's hard for me to believe it. Instead of just I'm kind of, I guess, pussyfooting this around the situation and not just saying, no, man, I don't believe that.
When you mention those things, is that when your dad becomes confrontational?
Kind of, yeah. Well, that he's not so much about that. It's when I go more in depth with why I have problems with the Catholic religion, because he specifically wants me to be Catholic. Like he talks to me about it a lot. He wants me to be baptized the Catholic way and everything.
Okay.
I think it's worth pointing out that there's a number of generally good things where the Catholic Church is better than a variety of Protestant churches. For example, they have pretty decent private schools, and they're pretty good on evolution. And by the way, a good chunk of Mormons also pretty decent on evolution. Where they're bad is on a number of different things, which is, first of all, positions with regard to abortion and condoms and LGBTQ issues and things like that. I would imagine, and I'm not, maybe your dad is just wonderful, but a good chunk of religious people talking about the church's terrible position on gays isn't going to sway them, because they share that position. They already view it as God giving you over to a reprobate mind. You people are perverted. It's a choice and things like that. So if that's the way your dad is, it's probably best not to go anywhere near that stuff. Find the thing that your dad actually cares about, that the church is in conflict with. Some finding of science or economic policy or social policy. But at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense. Does your dad believe that when he eats the communion wafer that it actually turns into the body of Jesus?
Yes, he does.
So where's the evidence for that? Right. And what point does it turn into the body of Jesus? Does it turn in there when the priest blesses it? Does it turn into it when you put it in your mouth? Or does it have to get all the way to your stomach? And maybe it even has to go through your entire intestine before it turns into Jesus. At what point is it Jesus's body? And if we were to go in and remove it, what would we find DNA speaking?
I mean, man, maybe you're saying everything I would like to communicate to him. It's just like he has like a wall put up where he doesn't even want to engage in that subject or that kind of, because we talked about the communion wafer before, how he from what he told me before it even enters his mouth, it is the body of Christ. This is God's body, and the wine is God's blood. Like he believes that. It's
so
like
we can have him take a communion wafer into his mouth, and then instead of swallowing it, bring it outside, give it to someone. We can take it to a lab and analyze it. And if he's right, we should find human DNA that's not his.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I found it interesting.
Felix,
I found it interesting though. So like Matt's talking a lot about, how to verify these claims, and you can also come at it from the other end as well and say, hey, Dad, let's pretend for a moment that we're wrong about this particular thing, whether it be, the transmogrification of the cracker into flesh, or the blood into wine, or, a Holy Spirit speaking to you. You can take almost any one of these questions and ask for that evidence and verification, or you can come at it from the other end and say, hey, let's pretend for a moment, Dad, that we're wrong about this. We're actually factually wrong about this position. If we were, how could we come about finding that out? How could we determine whether we were actually wrong about this? And that might get him to start looking at it from rather a verification angle, more of a falsification angle. It's a different way of thinking about the problem because you're no longer looking to confirm, you're looking to just even at a thought experiment to falsify or deny the claim. And that might get him to think about it from a different angle.
Actually, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I was gonna mention something about your father. Kind of a tangent here too. I kind of locked onto something you said where he has put up, it sounds like some barriers or some boundaries. He says, like you mentioned that he says he doesn't want to talk about certain things. Yet he's coming to you and pushing his religion on you, telling you that you need to become a Catholic, you need to do X, Y, and Z. One thing you perhaps may want to do tactfully is say, hey, Dad, I can't help but notice you're putting up these boundaries, and yet you're not respecting mine. Whether you've actually explicitly expressed to him, hey, these are my boundaries. I don't want you to pressure me into Catholicism or any religion. You may want to point out to him, say, hey, is it fair that you have these safeties and these boundaries and I have to respect that, yet you don't respect mine? And kind of get more on an equal footing and make agreements at that point. Say, hey, listen, Dad, we can talk about this subject if we can talk about this other subject that I want to talk about. Or if he wants you to read the Bible or read holy text, you can say, I will read this if, Dad, you instead also read this other thing that I propose. Whether it can be like scientific papers or other books or articles, wikis, whatever. Let's try to establish an equitable relationship, one of fair and equal exchange. And if your dad is a fair and equal guy, then he should respect that.
100%. Like, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I will say I've tried to go kind of down a route like that. I have, my dad is from Mexico, and we have a big, I don't speak Spanish fully. I was raised with my white mom, so I don't speak Spanish, but we have kind of a language barrier between us, but he speaks English fairly well. So as far as I would love to show him like the line or the atheist experience, something like that. And it's, I'm not really able to because it was kind of, yeah, yeah, you're right. That's right. But that's where it's kind of been, it's kind of tough for me, the language barrier as well.
I tell you, you already knew before you called in and you said it, Felix. You're like, I think you're going to tell me to drop it. I'm not going to tell you to drop it, but what I will say is parents are difficult. My parents, I don't have this conversation with them anymore. We've had it a couple times. It didn't go particularly well. I can have this, I can have this conversation with your dad. Maybe I can have a conversation with your dad that you can't. But also, I think there's I can't tell who will or won't change their mind. I know people former believers who stopped believing at 12 and some who didn't stop believing until they were 80. People give it up for different reasons. Different communicators are going to be more effective. I'm going to be more effective with somebody. Eric's going to be more effective with somebody else. Maybe we can both be effective with the same person. But I'll tell you this, outside of Dan Barker, I don't know too many atheists who managed to convert their parents.
I don't see myself adding myself to that list. So yeah,
I'm not saying
like I said, I kind of already.
Happen, but here's the thing. Here's what I can say is better than what I'm going to say. Go read Dan Barker's books. He's got one called Godless that I would recommend. He's also got a new one that I have a copy of. Boom. Let me get this here. It's called Contradiction. It's a really cool book on a very particular idea. But since Dan has had more luck in converting his parents than I have with mine, it might be worth reading Dan's books to see if there's something about his arguments, his style, that might fit better with you and your situation. It might not, but at least you've got additional ammunition, because I do things a certain way. Eric does things a certain way. Dan does things a certain way. And I'm not only not arrogant enough to think that my way is the best way or the right way. I'm happy to point you to other people who are better than I am in certain areas for sure. But that's about all I got for today, Felix.
I really appreciate that, man. So Dan Barker, I got Godless and Contradiction.
Yep. I think you will enjoy Contradiction as a quirky way of looking at something that might turn into a useful tool. And Godless is just kind of his story, and it'll touch on some of that. But it'll give you a perspective that is similar to, but not identical to my own or Eric's.
Hell yeah, man! I appreciate that a lot. And again, it's really cool just to talk to you, both of you, especially my guy Matt Dillahunty, man. You're awesome, bro. Appreciate everything over the years, everything, because I learned a lot from you and how to talk to people. So appreciate you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. We're gonna let you go now and wrap up the show, but call us back and let us know how it goes.
Hell yeah, man! Thank y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Yep. Bye.
Good luck, Felix.
This is a show on the Line Network. It's a great network, and it's getting ready to be expanded. I can't give you guys any of the information that Jimmy called and gave me today. I know all about the new network. I know all about the new game show stuff. I know all about all kinds of stuff. I know so much stuff. I know so much more than everybody else on that subject, and I can't share it at all, but I am excited. Here we go as a reminder of other shows that are coming up this week on the Line. Tomorrow night, Skeptalk is going to be Shannon Q. Tuesday, Chewed Gum, 6 p.m. And Monday, Skeptalk also at 6 p.m. Alyssa Ljub, and we're not announcing the guest. It's still waiting to be confirmed. Wednesday in the Hang Up, you can see me and Eric again if, in fact, we have a show. And if I'm too sick, then either we'll cancel it or Eric will just do the show without me. I got no issue with that. Tuesday's Transatlantic Call-In Show is at 2 p.m. with Arden and Luxander. And next Sunday, we'll be back with more Sunday show stuff. I'll be on the early show at 2 p.m. with Seth Andrews. Hooray. And Jimmy will be back with Eric at 7 p.m. Eric, do you have any announcements or anything else we need to wrap up?
No, nothing. So I'm back from a month of travel, so that's why I've been kind of quiet around here, but I should hopefully be getting back up once I'm fully decompressed and got my head back on tight and everything. So yeah, looking forward to be back, and can't wait till next time.
Good deal. Well, on that note, look down below this screen right now, and you can click on like, and you can click on subscribe. And if you go down to the description underneath the show, you can find more ways to support us. In addition to joining the network, you can go to patreon.com/calltheline. There's also links for PayPal and other things down there, because our videos do on occasion, or let's be honest, quite regularly, get demonetized. So while we appreciate everybody's support and the people who called in, wonderful, good conversations today on a number of different topics, we'll be back with more. Don't miss any of the other shows on the Line. Thanks to all of our mods.